Hello. Let's see. I'm going to turn on my volume. Can people hear me okay? Yeah. All right. We had 21 people register for this, so we'll see how many people let me turn on my volume. How many people actually land? Um, but the schedule is all day, and my plan was not to have us looking at our screens for all day. But there'll be meditations, there'll be writing exercises, there'll be small groups. There'll be some practices that we're going to do in nature if you can find any nature around you. So just so you know, even though the day says 9 to 4, 9 to 5, um, my hope would be that we will be here some time and we'll be doing writing exercises and contemplations and other practices kind of integrated throughout the day. So this is the first one of these we've ever done. We did, I think, a month long on kind of purpose that we did with kind of various speakers along the month. But we've never actually done a day long kind of where we dedicate a day to this topic. So I'm excited to see how this all evolves and flows. Um, we also have, which some of you might be a part of, what we have something called the Heart's Path, which is it's been a 9 month journey and we've been interviewing all types of people on their purpose and their life path and their heart's path. And how do we find that which is most kind of alive and real and authentic for us? And how do we do our best to align that with our lives? Because it's one thing to kind of know what that is, but then how do we make a living? How do we set that up? How do we structure that? And to me, that's like one of the most kind of coolest explorations to have. And I'd love to, my hope is to actually write a book on it someday once I've kind of collected enough pieces. So we've done like 20 interviews and all kinds of like research, just looking at like what is it that kind of helps us rekindle and connect with this sense of aliveness and sense of presence. But then how do we have it show up in our lives? Because most of us need to make a living and most of us have work to do in the world. And most of us were born for some reason. We weren't just born by an accident. Usually there's something here that our job is to listen to and to follow and to connect with. And so to me, that's like one of the most interesting conversations, which is how do we begin to trust, to follow, to listen? And then how do we begin to bring those things out into our life in some way that feels authentic to us? And it doesn't have to be some huge nonprofit or some big life-changing this or that, but it feels kind of nurturing to us. John Kabat-Zinn likes to use a phrase. He says it's really important to do to find what it is that you would pay to do and do that and then get paid to do that. But you would do it anyways because you love it so much that it just calls you. And that level of being called feels like it's super powered. And it's been interesting watching the Democratic convention the last couple days because different speakers come on and you can kind of tell some of them are speaking from different places of their heart and their being. And some people come on and they're just fully alive, they're just like loving themselves, loving the world, loving everything. And it feels differently. It feels differently when somebody really cares about kind of what they're doing in the world and how they're showing up. And and I think that's a lot of who we are. Like, and we can kind of go into this, but like when the Obamas spoke in particular, I could feel that there was this sense of there was something deeper purpose than just them, right? Like they were trying to harness the best of all of us to show up and be our true selves in the world. They were doing it in the context of a political election, which is fine, but there's also this context of like, how do we show up and be who we are in the world, not to necessarily get someone elected, but because that's kind of who we are and how we're about and how we want to carry ourselves. And it's been fun watching that and just kind of feeling the energy of like humanity and possibility and what brings people alive. And I think often what brings people alive is a sense of community in the sense that it's not just them in this isolated life living this kind of like world where it's like me against the world. It's when people feel this sense of togetherness and connected to larger vision. And I think there's goods and bads of the political parties. One of the goods of the political parties is it develops that sense of team. Like, yeah, we're here, we're in a competition, we want to win, we want to, succeed, but there's this sense of family and togetherness and sharedness. Um, the challenge with political parties often is that there's an other that they create, right? It's us against them, and we are the Democrats, they are the Republicans, we are better, we are this. And so, how do we create a sense of community without necessarily creating more others? How to create a sense of community without necessarily like having to fight against somebody, but this is just who we are and who our expression is in the world. And so, my plan today, as I mentioned before, and a few people are bouncing in later, is there'll be some meditations, there'll be some small group dialogues, there'll be some journal writing that we'll do probably on our own. And then there'll be some exercises that we're going to do not on the Zoom. So there'll be exercises that I'm going to encourage you to go out for 30 minutes and find a place in nature and to write about certain things. So just so you know, we're not all going to be on Zoom all day long. We'll have touch bases of Zoom. But one of the biggest things I've learned about is just how much nature is a teacher and how much silence is a teacher. And also how much community is a teacher. And again, I've never done this before a day long, so I'll be learning along with you. So maybe you can help guide me as this unfolds, and we can talk at the end about what worked and what didn't work. But that community is a teacher, silence is a teacher, nature is a teacher. And so how do we spend this day kind of cultivating ourselves and cultivating what's actually true and real for us? Not what we were told should be true and real for us by parents or society or our education system or whatever stories we got about, like, well, you look smart, maybe you should go into this topic, or um, your mom or dad did this topic, maybe you should do this vocation. Like, all these stories and narratives that we get from our lives about who we are and how we should be and what makes sense to us. But at some point, we get a chance to then decide, like, okay, I've done XYZ for a while. What is it? Is that really my true spirit? Is that really my true calling? Is there something else emergent? And even maybe it was our true calling for 5 years, 10 years, but maybe something new is emergent now. How do we listen to that? How do we connect with that? And how do we make sure that for those of us who need to make a living, which my guess is all of us, that's connected to something that's sustainable. So that's my, intention today. My intention is that one, at the end of the day, you as a human will feel more nurtured. You'll feel more connected to your heart, connected to your body, connected to your life. Hopefully you'll feel more connected to the other people here. And you'll also have a little better sense of kind of what brings you alive and how maybe to listen to that and to follow that and what that would look like if you just gave that a little more attention. So for example, I've been hosting events now for 25 years, or no, not, let's see, 16 years, Wisdom 2.0 events. We do them in New York and San Francisco. I think I'll still do them, but every year I'm open to letting it go. Every year I'm like, is this still alive for me? Or is this just something I've learned to do and I can keep doing, but it's not really alive? So I think we're all in that journey of this thing felt alive, and does it still feel alive? Or does something else want to emerge? And when something else does emerge, I should say, it doesn't mean we need to quit our job and leave our life and divorce our partner or whatever, or abandon our kids. It might be like, oh, I need to incorporate this in some way. I need to like volunteer in this topic, or I need to maybe spend 30 minutes a day painting because painting feels exciting to me. So it's not like necessarily drastic shifts need to happen in order to kind of follow what's most alive for us or what's most true for us. But there is, I think, an exploration to happen, particularly. I'm just curious, raise your hands for those of you. How many people watch the Democratic Convention if you're excited about all that stuff? Or okay, so some of it, a lot of us. Um, that there is this way in which the world is always in the process of transforming, like the earth and humans are like, it's never been stagnant. And maybe it's just me, but it feels like there's a bigger transformation happening now. And that's in part because of climate change, and that's in part because of AI. And also I think that's in part because the political divisions in our country and the world have gotten so strong that we're realizing that there needs to be another way. And that kind of brutal capitalism that's been guiding our society and world may not really be helpful for humanity, and it may not actually be helpful for the earth, and it may not be what we need to guide us in the years ahead. Like we actually might need to have some radical shifts in how we think about each other, how we think about business, how we think about commerce, how we think about life and love. And so it feels like for us, for humans to live a sustainable life on the planet, there's some very, very big shifts that are going to need to happen. And we are part of those shifts. Like we are, I'd like to say that was it 13 billion, 13.5 billion years ago, whenever the Big Bang happened. And it wasn't just an event that happened billions of years ago. We are the remnants of the Big Bang. Like we are that essence, right? Like we're the unfolding consciousness that was ignited, whether it was ignited then or it was before, I can't say, but we are the continuation of this. And that transformation is always changing. It's never stagnant. And so, how do we want to engage in the world? How do we want to show up in the world? How do we want to be our one little, out of 8 billion humans here, our unique expression? That's us. And it's not trying to like deal with, you know, pain from our childhood, and not trying to like make everybody see us as successful or make everybody see us as smart or make everybody see us in any particular way, but it's actually from an inside, where our guidance is actually from the inside rather than from the outside. If we listen to the inside world and we cultivate that and we tend to that, we can kind of discover more deeply what what is true for us, and then how that gets expressed in the world. So that's this day. And if you've come just with a lot of curiosity, you've come to the right place. And if you come with a lot of open mind, a lot of not knowing, you've come to the right place. My hope is that we begin to explore a topic which I feel like there's no, I don't know if maybe colleges slowly are starting to do this, but colleges are just in traditional education, it's just done an awful job of helping people tune into themselves and try to listen to what their calling is. It's done a great job as like, you want to do math, here's all this information about math, you want to do politics, here's all this like, it's just great at just like sending information into our brains and having us download that and regurgitate that and repeat that and process that. And then we take these tests, which is like, how well did you remember all this information that we kind of stuffed at you? Very, very good at that, very, very bad at supporting us in listening to what our karmic assignment is and how that wants to show up and wants to unfold. So that's our day. I want to start with a meditation. Just check out the chat here real quick to make sure there's nothing. Sometimes in the chat, people are like, I can't hear you. I'm like, shit, I wished I would have seen that earlier. But it looks like I'm good. Hello from Vancouver. Yes. Thank you for Vancouver, Tony from Vancouver. So my intention or invitation is to, we'll start with the meditation. And again, different people might be coming in and out, and we'll just be with whatever it is. I trust that people will make it whenever they make it and can kind of come and go as they please. But my hope would be that if you can be here most of the day, that would be awesome. So inviting you to sit in any way that feels comfortable to you. If you can sit with your back somewhat straight and upright, that's awesome. And if you're comfortable letting your eyes close or lowering your gaze. And take a couple of deep breaths. And just feel what it's like in your body right now. Notice the flow or rhythm of the breath in the body. Starting maybe with feeling your sensations of your feet on the ground, if you're sitting in a chair or standing. Just noticing the pressure on your right foot and your left foot, the sensations there. Bringing your attention up to your legs, relaxing the muscles and tendons in your legs. Noticing the sensations around your belly. And taking a couple of deep breaths and seeing, to whatever extent you can, relaxing or softening your belly. And noticing the sensations in your hands, the energy in your hands. And seeing if you can relax or soften your fingers in your hand. And then feeling the sensations around your chest. In particular, noticing your heart. How's your heart doing or feeling in this moment? Feel open, closed, excited, nervous? Seeing what you notice as you connect with your heart. And what might it be to open or expand your heart in this moment? To whatever extent you can. And noticing the muscles in your face and jaw, and inviting the muscles to soften and relax. Seeing if you can relax some sensations around your eyes, eyelids. muscles in your face, jaw, inviting your muscles to be at ease, not trying to be somebody special or do anything in particular. Just here. Next, feeling your whole body from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head and just getting a sense of the presence and the energy in your body. Then feeling the sensations in your on your breath. Just noticing the flow and the rhythm of your breath in your body. You might notice the chest expands and contracts. On the in-breath, it expands slightly. On the out-breath, it contracts slightly. And the belly rises and falls. You may also notice sensations at the nostrils as the breath comes in and out. And tuning to this rhythm and flow of the breath. Inviting yourself to be fully present right here, right now, to the best of your possibility, capacity. And noticing thoughts and feelings, emotions, noticing whatever arises as you sit here. Welcoming whatever wants to appear. Accepting and allowing it as best you can. And also noticing how everything changes. No thought stays, no emotion stays. Can we be right here, right now, as best we can? Noticing how the mind will go away to 10,000 different things. And as the various thoughts arise, we have a choice to either follow the thoughts or notice them. And our practice is to notice them, and while staying connected with the breath as our anchor. So we're present, connected to our body, connected to our breath. We're just noticing what emerges in the field, whatever storyline shows up. But we're aware. We can spend our entire lives, our entire day, jumping from one thought to another thought, but not often always just here. Tasting the food, smelling flowers, actually seeing our partner or child or friend. Noticing trees and sunrises and sunsets. All our other sense stores sometimes gets overrun by our intellect. And at least for right now, what would it mean, as best we can, to be fully present right here, right now? Noticing the body and the breath, and noticing what arises in awareness. Not controlling anything, not pushing away anything. Not trying to make something else happen. Just with this incredible miracle of being alive. This incredible miracle of being able to breathe. Can we just appreciate this enormously complex and beautiful gift we have, that we have the capacity to breathe, the capacity to be aware, capacity to know that we are alive. And as best you can, noticing where your attention is in this moment, and allowing or inviting the attention to be present, to be here. The mind will always come up with so many reasons why it should not be here or cannot be here, or there's all these things to do and to think about and to figure out. And yet the only place we can ever live our life is right here. Nowhere else but here. The future is just a thought. The past is just a memory. And all those thoughts of the future and thoughts of the past happen right now, right in this moment. And the incredible gift humans have is to gradually cultivate a sense of presence by coming back to just this moment. And so for these last few minutes of the meditation, inviting yourself in this balance between being completely at ease in your body as best you can, and also alert and awake as best you can. When you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Thank you. I think with everything, just like when you're on an airplane and you have a child that says put on your oxygen mask first. I think everything in life is about putting your oxygen mask on first and taking care of our inner world so that we can better engage in the external world. So I want to do a breakout, but before I do, is there anything, any questions? Let me go into chat before we move on. Anything up for people that you want to ask or mention before we move on? Cool. So we're going to break people up into groups right now. And you're going to get a chance to talk about what brought you here. Why did you say yes when you got this or saw this or somehow this emerged in your world? What was your yes that brought you here? And we'll have, let's see, we'll have about 20 minutes and then we'll come back. Or actually, let's see, we'll give us, we'll give us to the hour at 10 o'clock and we'll bring it back. And the practice is to just listen from your heart and speak from your heart about what brought you here. What was the yes that made you want to set aside the good part of a day to explore and listen and discover what your purpose might be? So you'll see a little invite to join a group, and then we'll be back at the hour. Hello and welcome back. I think there's one or two new people, so just reminder, this is a all-day practice of purpose event where we're exploring kind of who we are, first and foremost, and at this particular juncture in our life, what is it that's calling us, or what is it that is moving us into action? And the plan for today is that at the end of the day, you'll hopefully feel better, more connected to yourself, more connected to others, and more sense of what it is that brought you here and what it is that you want to maybe shift to live what's inside of you more aligned with your actions in the world. And we were talking earlier about those of us who are in the United States and watching the Democratic Convention, which just ended, last night. There's a lot of emphasis on doing something, and I totally appreciate that because I feel like doing is really, really important. But I would say more important that nobody ever mentioned was being something. And when we're connected with ourselves, we're connected with our hearts. Hopefully, our doing is more impactful because we're connected to ourselves. And so the whole intention today is to really spend some time connecting with ourselves, connecting with each other, and beginning to envision what shifts, if any, want to take place in our lives. And if there's something new that we want to bring in, how do we kind of tend to that and nurture that? And if there's some things that we maybe don't want that let go of, how do we identify what those are? And so we'll be doing some exercises around that soon, but how to begin to identify what are the things that actually don't serve me anymore and don't really need my attention? And what are those other things that I actually want to bring forth? I want more time, whether it's exercising or with friendships or in other engagements. How do I kind of cultivate those other pieces? Um, and then how do I actually connect to what we might call our deeper essence or our spiritual self and kind of let that guide us? And how do we kind of discover what that true kind of source or intelligence or wisdom is inside us and begin to kind of trust that and work with that and see if that might be able to guide us into what kind of next steps we want to take in our life. And again, I mentioned before, but I know there's some new people here, and the goal isn't to have some like drastic shift in your life, like where you quit your job and leave your partner or whatever else. Um, it's more about how to incorporate what it is that's kind of true and real and most honest for us. And whether that's 5 minutes a day of painting, or whether that's 10 minutes a day of singing, or whether that's 15 minutes a day of walking in the woods, I don't know what that is, but there's usually things that nurture us. And there's often activities, whether it's volunteering or starting a new company or starting a nonprofit. I'm exploring starting a new nonprofit now, so I know what this is like, where you're listening to something and it feels like there's something you're supposed to do. There's like an action that's calling you. And so my intention today is to create some quiet and create some space and create some community where we can begin to listen to that and kind of see what is bubbling up in our lives. Before we move into kind of some other pieces, though, I kind of want to stop and hear from people, and if anybody has anything to say, either questions or if you want to share with us what came up. Why are you actually here? What is it that drew you here? What was the yes that when you saw this, probably in an email, and it said purpose, like what was it in you that kind of resonated or reverberated with that? And anything about kind of what your current life is or current world is. I wasn't able to join the different breakouts. So if anybody wants to share anything from those breakouts or just from what brings you here, that would be lovely. And if you don't, that's okay too. But I'll just stop and talking for a few minutes. And if there's somebody who wants to share, we'll make space. One of the things I learned from John Kabat-Zinn, who's one of my teachers, is he'll say something like this, and he'll wait a long time. Like sometimes he'll sit quietly for 5 minutes or so, and then just see what emerges. So I'll just give a few more minutes. There's nothing forced or Oh, people can't unmute. All right, let me let you. You can raise your hand, but now you can all unmute yourself should you want to, Tony. Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, we had a nice group of 4 women ranging in age from mid-40s to mid-70s, and we all sort of, different specifics, but all sort of thinking about we're in some kind of transition,
Yeah.
um, brief or prolonged, and kind of thinking about how to evolve that transition.
Mhm.
So, even though like very diverse group in some ways, a lot of commonality.
And the commonality, if I hear you right, was there's some particular form of life, and it feels like there's a new form of life that wants to emerge. Like there's something that feels
Yeah,
like,
or evolve. Like again,
well,
not
yeah.
necessarily radical, but sort of we're all on like a growth journey
Mhm.
together. And it was actually very nice sense of community in that, being
That's
with other
beautiful.
people on a growth journey. That's how
Thank
I've
you. Thank you. Is there anything you want to say about your particular journey right now, or does that feel like enough, or do you guys?
oh, that's enough for now.
Okay, that's great. Appreciate it. Anybody else? That was my sense, but it's always good to kind of hear from people. Like my sense was the people who are here now. I kind of look at it as I use kind of Eckhart Tolle's language some, but there's the form and then there's the formless. So things like love and gratitude and things are like the formless qualities, like they don't have a physical form. But then there's the form of activities that we want to do in our life, which do have a form, right? Like maybe we're in this vocation or that vocation. And so kind of the dance really is to connect with kind of what is real and true for us, and then see how that can get expressed in form, whether that is shifting a job or shifting our volunteer work or shifting some action that we're making, or like I said, spending 15 minutes singing every day or whatever that is. How do we begin to listen to that and bring that out? So before we go into our next exercise, I'll just give a little more time if anybody else wants to share. Awesome. So this next exercise, you can do it either writing on your phone, you can do it right on your computer, but preferably, I was looking for my notebook, it's in the other room. You have a notebook and you can write on your notebook. So my encouragement is actually to step away from the screen and we'll spend some time writing. And there's 2 parts to the writing. One part to the writing is what in my life right now do I want to either release or spend less time focused on? And then the second part of the exploration is what is it in my life right now that I want to cultivate, that I want to actually encourage and make more space for? So for me, just kind of right off the top of my head, like one thing that I would love to let go of is kind of being constantly connected to news and updates and what everything is going on in the world, and whether it's Trump or the stock market or the news, like I spend more time than I would like focused on a lot of those things that I could easily check once a day and be fine in the know. Um, but increasingly I see my attention just kind of like addicted to this news cycle that doesn't really serve me. And I spend probably way too much time on screens than I really need to. And whenever I go out in nature and I'm walking in the woods or have experiences of connecting like that is so much nourishing for me. And that's something that I would love to make more space for. I also realize that I have some couple kind of newer-ish friends right now in my life that I'd love to actually make really good friends. But I haven't really cultivated that yet. Like I haven't like set aside time to really meet the people and connect with the people in the ways that I want to. We might go for, I don't know, a walk once a month or something, but I'd really love to like have more of a regular connection with other people in my life. Both some men friends, some women friends, some various friends. Um, So that's just kind of right off the top. I could go much more deeply into that. So the exercise is the first part is we'll try to do 10 minutes on each one. 10 minutes on what is it that I feel I'm ready to release? And it could be even internal things like resentment, anger, frustration, controlling my child. I'm ready to release trying to control my child. I'm ready to release trying to make my boss happy. I'm continually trying to make him or her happy, and I realize it's just not possible. And so I want to release that. And then the things that we want to bring in and just use it like a meditation. So you might sit there in the time period, you might sit there and listen, and there'll be a minute or two where nothing comes. You're just kind of being with the moment. And then you'll realize that something emerges. So it's more of a meditation than like a to-do. So my encouragement is we'll get away from our screens and you'll sit with that question. What is it that I want to let go of? And you'll sit and you might notice nothing arises and you'll wait 5 or 10 seconds. You'll say, what do I want to let go of? And then you'll start writing again. Something will arise. And then that might finish. And you'll close your eyes for a second and just kind of repeat the question. What is it that I want to let go of? You just kind of notice what arises and then write down whatever arises. Does that make sense? So it's less like you have to be writing all the time, but you can if you want, but it's more of like as you meditate and sit with this, you're kind of asking yourself, you're asking your deeper self, you're asking the universe, you're more in a listening role than like a doing role. So as you sit and you listen and you tune in, what is it that um what is it that I want to let go of right now in my life? And we'll do that. Actually, maybe we'll do that let's do that for 15 minutes. Let's give that some time. And then you can set an alarm on your phone or whatever alarm you want. And then the next 15 minutes, we'll sit with the same question. What is it that I want to cultivate or bring forth in my life? And just notice what arises when you ask the question. And then you might not have something arise, and then you'll sit with it and you'll repeat the question. And then you'll sit with it again and you'll repeat the question and you'll just see what arises. And it could be kind of intuitive. It could be you write a poem. It could be you write just a journal entry. It could be anything. But we're just going to kind of give space to these questions. We want to like give some time for you to really reflect and think about and listen to what is it that is actually wanting to receive less of my attention, and what is it that's wanting to receive more of my attention. And just be honest with yourself. You can share this later on with others, but you don't have to share this with anyone. It's really about you getting to know yourself and getting to know where you're at and how attention kind of gets leaked, like at the end of the day, like where did my attention go? Where did my time go? Did it go to the things that really matter to us, or did it go to a lot of things that didn't matter to us? And sometimes with work, we don't really have a lot of control over that, but often we have some control. And so how do we cultivate this like more aligned life? And often how we cultivate a more aligned life is we increasingly are putting our time and attention on the things that draw us and that feel that they nurture us. And if you look at particularly social media in our day and age, I don't know anybody who's like, I wish I could just spend more time on social media. I just wish that I could give it more of my attention. But we're stuck in these worlds of algorithms and likes and all this stuff. And I've never met anybody who's like, I just feel so good to be on it. I just want to be on it more. It's more that the technology companies have like hooked us into their system of likes and dopamine release, and we're just kind of stuck. And so right now we're not trying to control anything we're just naming things. Okay. So the thing is just to name. When you ask that question, what is it that I want to let go of? What arises? 15 minutes, the alarm goes off. Okay, what is it that I want to bring forth and cultivate? Does that make sense? And there's no good, wrong, or right questions, answers. This is really about you tuning into yourself and feeling and noticing what's true. Looking at chat real quick to see if there's any pieces. Okay. So I know we're on different time zones, so it's 20 minutes after the hour. Let's do 15 minutes of each, so that will bring us back at 15 minutes after the hour, if my math is correct, yeah? Okay, so we'll see you guys, everyone back in 30 minutes. All right, take care. Hello and welcome back. Let's see, a few people are still slowly coming back. Hard to know sometimes who's just on audio listening and who's here or not here. But yeah, if you want to come back, that's awesome. Let's see if there's some questions in chat. Yeah, so we're all on different time zones. It'd be great if you have a second, you want to just type in the chat what time zone you are, because we were going to break for lunch and other people are asking for breaks. So I know Tony says I need a 10-minute break. But why don't you write in the chat? So I was my plan was for us to break for lunch, but I also realized my lunch is not necessarily your lunch, but there will be a break in the middle of the day. All right, Central Time. Okay, I'm on Pacific too. Eastern Pacific. Okay. We'll do the best we can so right now it's almost 11 a.m. So my plan would be to go for another hour. And then we will take a break from we'll take like hour and a half break for lunch, well, our lunch in the West Coast, and then we'll come back for the second half of the day. So hopefully that works out for people. So the plan is, for those of you, is to go for another hour, and then we'll have a lunch break, or if you're on the East Coast or Europe, you can take whatever break you want, but we'll have a break, and then we'll take part in the second half of the day. So I think it's really, really important to kind of better understand what these patterns are in terms of the patterns that kind of take up a lot of our time. There's friends that I have, who will complain and they'll be like, well, I really don't know what to do with my life. I'm not getting any good ideas. I don't really have any insights. And I'm like, well, have you thought of, meditating for the day or something? They're like, oh, I don't really have any time to meditate. But then they'll tell me about this Netflix series that they just like binge watched for 10 hours. Or they'll tell me about all the social media hours that they spend on their life, in their time. And I'm like, how in the hell are you supposed to get any good idea or any insight or any clarity when you're on Instagram or TikTok for 4 hours a day? Or don't tell me you have 15 minutes don't tell me you don't have 15 minutes to meditate when you just watch this, and then later tell me about this Netflix series that you just binge watch for 10 hours. So, I think part of what we're trying to do here is just be really, really honest with ourselves in terms of all right, what is actually true and real? And how do we become more of a conduit for creativity, for intuition, for presence? And how do we kind of coordinate our lives as best we can to move in that direction? And some things are actually super simple and super, super hard. Like, for example, when I wake up in the morning, I usually wake up between 6 and 6:30, and then I meditate. There's no freaking good reason for me to look at my phone until like 9, right? No really good reason, like nothing. And it's so freaking hard to not look at my phone until 9 because I'm wondering what email came through. I'm wondering what Trump said or Kamala. I don't even know what I'm wondering. But then I get lost in that world. And so my creativity is less, my sense of well-being is less. And so who's forcing me to do that? Like, I don't have a boss, or most bosses too aren't be like, you have to read your email. If you wake up at 6, you have to read your email at 6 by 6:30 or else you're fired or something. Usually it's things that we do to ourselves that limit our capacity to engage. And then we complain about this when we don't really realize oh, I get to choose my life in many respects, maybe not every respect, but we have kids and work and responsibilities, but there's time each day for most of us where we can determine how we want to spend our life. And how do we kind of create areas where we begin to cultivate spaciousness and kind of availability, if you will. So if we're on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, or binge watching Netflix or something, we're essentially unavailable in those hours, right? Like our attention is just like elsewhere. It's just like not present for our inner life at all. We're just completely focused on this kind of other story, which I'm not discrediting it completely, maybe like a little bit each week, that's cool, like that's good. But we're closing off the capacity we have to actually listen to our intuition, to kind of know what we feel, to know what's going on in our hearts. And so it's very, very difficult to get insight or to get clarity or to kind of know what direction we want to walk when so much of our life is kind of in this like mirage of news and information and drama and whatever else we spend our time doing. So part of the practice, when we call this the practice of purpose, much of the practice for me is creating conditions where we begin to have greater access to listening and to receiving what it is that our intuition tells us, what it is that our heart tells us. And I know so many people, my dad was kind of like this, where he would go from one room to the other room with the TV on, like where people go from, they never leave anywhere with their phone. Like they have to be constantly consuming something because the idea of just sitting by ourselves and being present and not entertained and not have stimuli and not have like things to like keep us entertained is like so scary. And you can be the wealthiest person in the world and have the most power and stuff, and you don't even know how to sit by yourself. You can't even like have a moment of peace because there has to be this constant kind of dopamine hits of stimuli. And I think part of what we're learning to practice here is how do we begin to shift that so that our life and our way of engaging in the world comes from more of a true purpose or true sense of mission and less from just habit and addiction and avoidance. And that's not easy at all to do in our current world because our current world is basically set up to keep us, well, that's not true. Our world is very, very conditioned, and the algorithms and the tech companies are incredibly smart to figure out ways to keep us glued to whatever screen they want to keep us glued to. Which is why, if you notice on Netflix, I think it gives us 4 seconds before the next autoplay starts for the next in the series. Why 4 seconds? Because they're like, if they have 5 seconds, they might actually have a moment where they think. And they're like, do I really want to watch this next movie? If we autoplay it, they're just in the loop, right? We're just in the matrix. And we don't actually stop and be like, huh, maybe I need to go for a walk. Maybe I should hang out with my dog or my child or my friend. And so the systems are built to kind of keep us in that loop. And so, our job in part is to kind of step out of that loop and begin to identify what are the things that I'm doing that are actually not serving me, and what are the things that I'm doing that I actually want to create more space for. So my inclination, we can either have the small group here, or I feel like people sometimes are more comfortable in small groups. I know there's not many of us here, but maybe my inclination was actually to break up into small groups and have people talk a little bit about what that exercise is, that exercise was for them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and just let you guys talk in the smaller spaces about like, what did you notice about the things that you were maybe the things that you wanted to let go of? And what did you notice about the things that you were excited to cultivate? And just kind of share a little bit about what your experience was in that exercise. So we will do that and we'll have a, let's see, I'll see how many breakout rooms we can do here. We'll do the same breakout rooms, or we'll do similar kind of size of breakout rooms and just share what that experience is like, and we'll come back. Let's see, it's at the hour. So we'll give everybody about 10 minutes each, and then we'll be back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad to have you in this little journey together and learnings together. There was some email or things in chat, so we will break for lunch or lunch on the West Coast at the hour here, which is in about 40 minutes. And then you can go for a walk. You can kind of take time by yourself, get some food, whatever you need to do. So thank you for uh, kind of navigating this journey with us. I would love to hear kind of what's arising for you all. If you want to share a little bit in some of the exercises, are they bringing stuff up? Are you realizing things maybe you didn't realize? So I would just love to do kind of a short check-in and kind of hear how this is all settling in, both with the meditations and the writing exercises and some of the other explorations that we're doing. In the afternoon, we're going to focus a little bit more on kind of the visioning that what we have. I think there's kind of a couple different really important parts. One is kind of identifying certain patterns that really don't serve us. And then more of it, which I'm actually really excited to go more deeper into, which is what is the vision? We'll be doing more of this after lunch. What is the vision that's coming through to us in the world? And how do we not only just like write that out, which it can be super, super helpful, but how do we begin to actually feel that in our system, to actually feel like it's present now, like it's actually alive with us now? How would we carry ourselves if that reality was true for us? And that gets into kind of some cool mystical things that we can kind of begin to explore, but I'm super fascinated by it, which is what's the difference between saying I'm not enough now, but if I get this, I'll be better and I'll be enough. And this is once I get these conditions, I'll feel better about myself. And then how do we begin to shift that towards carrying ourselves as worthy and better and whatever else it is that we want, and letting life unfold and the external unfold as it needs to unfold and kind of help us create that reality. So we're not going from not enough to enough. We're actually kind of embodying those qualities now, and also at the same time, kind of actively visioning what this new piece of our life wants to be. So the second half of the day kind of dives more deeply into that, but I just wanted to give kind of like a little glimpse into kind of where we're going to go with this. A lot of it first is identifying patterns and trying to kind of see where our current life is at. And the second half will be much more about envisioning what that means and beginning to embody what that means and noticing what are the stories we have in ourselves that that's not possible. I'm not good enough. I could never make money and do what I love. Everybody else can do it, but I can't. I'm not smart enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not whatever enough. And so we can kind of begin to feel into the blocks that we have about just showing up more fully in the world. And it's not an egoic showing up more fully. It's not like I'm so amazing, look at me. It's more just like as a human being, how do we kind of shine in all of our beauty and like be present in all of the ways that we can be present and kind of give the gifts that we're here to give. And so that's the spirit of it. And but I want to, before I go too much into that, I would love just to kind of get a check-in and see how the morning is going and what is arising for any of you, and if you have thoughts or questions. I'd love to hear just kind of how things are sitting, if people are willing to share. Yeah, hi Faith. Let's see. I think you're live with
Hi,
me. Hi, where are you calling from, Faith? I forget where you live.
Los Angeles,
Okay, cool.
LA. Gray LA today, but loving
Gray
the
LA.
coolness.
Okay. Gray San Francisco
It's
too,
very.
but we're more normal. That's more
Um,
normal for us.
I got to spend time with Catherine and Bonnie. I think they've been spending 2 sessions with each other this morning, so they're really
Oh
getting
wow.
to know each other.
The algorithm
But
thinks
I
that
just
they need to spend time together.
I love that algorithm.
Sometimes,
I
yeah.
Well, for me, it's been great in like Heart's Path and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I it was so beautiful for me because we each have different circumstances but are going
Mhm.
through similar things, and it was such a beautiful reminder to me that we're all going through the same
Yeah.
life experience. And
Yeah.
they were both really amazing listeners and compassionate people, and it just felt so warm.
Wow.
And I it was
Wow.
needed it.
Wow.
So
You know, it's so
thank you
amazing that
both.
so many people say that the sweetest part about any of these events we do is just the connections with somebody else. And I'm like thinking, is that the only role I have? Is just inviting people and just letting them do what they know how to do. But that seems to be the case.
Sometimes that is what you need, right?
Yeah, you just invitation, yeah, to be, yeah. And what do you think helps? I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? Were you going to say more about
Oh,
that? No.
I was,
What
I
do you
was
think
just going
helps?
to add that.
What do you think
Oh, I'm
helps
sorry.
create that experience? Like, is it just the people who show up come with a lot of heart, or is it, what are some of the qualities or the ingredients that you think
Well,
lead to that?
I think that we're all here intentionally, right? We chose to be part of this day. And I think that choice just brings up some open-heartedness where
Yeah,
you know it's a safe space and you want to participate and show up.
yeah,
And one person opens up, then everybody else seems to open up. And just that vulnerability isn't something that you get when you're at the market and see a friend. You
yeah,
know, it's just a different thing.
yeah. People have
And I was
wondered
also going
too,
to add that
please.
I just wanted to add that the first part of the exercise, you never know what's going to come up till it comes
Yeah.
up, right?
Was
And
this
at the
the
beginning,
exercise about what is not of service?
yeah, what is, yeah, exactly. And I didn't really expect this, but what came up for me was an entire list of things I really wasn't ready to release. I kind of looked at it and said, no, not ready yet. Um, and that brings clarity too.
Yeah, that you're not ready to release those. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's two parts of things. One is I always feel like I sometimes try to give advice to people that I think would really help them. And I realize they're not in a place to hear it. They don't have the capacity. And I could just be telling them every day something, particularly my son, but he's not in the place where he really has the capacity to receive that information. And I think sometimes the same is true with us, where sure, that would be great if we meditate an hour a day or whatever it was, but like we don't have the capacity right now to do that. And the most honest, truthful way is just to name our truth, right? And to slowly build capacity. And over time, probably some of those will just naturally fall away as you blossom and as you show up in the world. Like those things will work themselves out. We don't have to berate ourselves or judge ourselves or condemn ourselves to saying, you have to change this or you have to change that. I do think it's good to identify though what some of those are. And I'm always glad when people do an exercise like that and they say something surprised me. Because that usually means that like new information is coming in that our rational mind or daily mind, doesn't really accept. Yeah, thank you for that. One other note on connection, a friend of mine was asking recently about, is it easier on Zoom to connect because you're not seeing the whole person like in a cafe and so that it's quiet and you can kind of just connect in a different way? And it's also like you have less ways to judge them because I don't know, in daily life, you might look more closely at something and then judge them. And on Zoom, we're all kind of just like more accepting because we're kind of seeing each other as equals a little bit more and less otherwise. And I don't know if there's been some studies doing that, but I'd like to think that the connections that we have here, we can bring out into our world and hopefully have more connections with others too. Yeah. Thank you, Faith. Anything else to add before we? Do you have anything else to add, Faith, before? Oh, okay. Anybody else want to share kind of how this is rolling and what that exercise was like for you and anything that's just emergent for you right now? Let's see. Okay, I think you can unmute yourself, Tony, can't you, or no? There you go.
Yeah, I just was doing the hand gesture.
Okay, hand gestures work too.
um, yeah, this day for me is all about permission to give space.
Mhm.
And I love the two questions, which just make such obvious sense now that I look at them. And so it's space for such beautiful questions. What's not a service, what I want to release, and what I want to embrace and create space for was a great exercise. You know, both my purpose is pretty crystal clear over, you know, a lot of work, and there's been refinements over time, but and reflecting back, I was saying to Marilyn, who was such a wonderful partner a moment ago, that purpose, I can see how I've actually lived that purpose since I was born, in a sense, like since I can remember, in some way, shape, or form. And it was letting go of performance and outcomes, and thinking for the sake of thinking, or head led, head dominant things. And there was a lot more to that, you know, and a little bit of that, who am I to do this or be that, came into it, which I think comes from, you know, the one of those 4 things in Buddhism that we can let go of, self-doubt being the 4th, I think. But and I drew a little picture to go with that, and it was a performance chart, you know, with the zigzag lines, very angular, very stark, very unidimensional. And what came up in the cultivation for me was purpose, but really, you use that word connection, the space here today to continue unfolding my connection with purpose at a deeper, more intrinsic, almost a molecular level, so that, you know, I might binge watch a little less because I am deeply in love with my purpose. I'm deeply connected to it. And the image that came to mind that I drew there, and it came out of the meditation this morning, was a diamond, a purple diamond, just exuding this golden light, which, you know, I don't need to analyze that, but it was a beautiful experience, and it was good to write it down, and it was very sweet to say it out loud to Marilyn, in this case, to you guys. I haven't given you it all, or I didn't give her all of it. So this has been a great space, and to let those things arise in a body sense. I mean, yes, they're all words, they come from the brain, but I didn't overthink them. I just let them come up, and some of them were colors and shapes, and so beautiful to have this gift of and permission today to do this with you all.
Beautiful. I love that it's coming through to you, and I kind of wish I had said this earlier. Sometimes visuals, shapes and feelings, and it's not like always words, you know, there's a feeling and an energy. And that's what I think is the essential part. It's what does it feel like? And sometimes people hear things, sometimes people see things, sometimes it's words, but sometimes it's something else. And I love it that our bodies and our systems kind of know what to do if we just give them the space to, you know, like, if we can create the conditions, the natural intelligence of our systems seem to have a really innate capacity to speak to us or to guide us. I'm looking at all those flowers behind you, and I'm like, oh, that's I know that's a picture, but like those are some good guides to have there, I think, behind you.
Yeah. When you said that, and you were talking about the convention and all the doing, but how are people being? How are people feeling? And that in exercises like today's is about, for me, is feeling into being, you know, rather than thinking into being. And sure, thinking comes into it, but in a whole sense, you know. Anyways, I'm skipping over my blah, blah, blah. Thank you.
No, this is great. I think this is really helpful for all of us, which is, I just see them as different intelligences. And most of us who grew up in traditional developed worlds, our analytical mind gets like 99% of the attention. Like,
Head up, neck up.
Learn, analyze, process, and anything below that, intuition, visuals, feelings, like it just was a muscle that just was never really attended to. And then we grow up and we get older, and we're realizing like, wow, there's this whole other intelligence that I just haven't known how to access, because It just hasn't been, what has been tended to. And I feel like, so now you and I and everybody else here, we get to build that muscle, and we get to
Mm.
like see like, what is a life where I have access to these multiple intelligences inside me, and I can enjoy the beauty of my being and the beauty of life and the beauty of nature, and just the amazing moment we're living right now, right? Like, this moment is incredible.
Mhm.
And society will tell you, no, 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 there's a future moment that's even more incredible. Or if you only got this more, you'd be better. And if only you achieve this, and it's like, so we're all, there's always this next moment, kind of like thing, like it's always somewhere coming, right? And what I love about what you said was it's such an invitation to kind of then come back and actually be like, huh, maybe it's actually this moment that we can be in, and we can appreciate, and then use our mind, our analytical mind, but not be used by our analytical mind. And that's the awakening that's happening right now on the planet. Like, more people are like, oh, I don't want to be used by it. If I'm used by it, then I'm just constantly running for stuff, whether it's running on Instagram or TikTok or Life or Netflix, whatever we're running, we're just kind of on a treadmill. And like, oh, when I actually connect to this other intelligence, it's a different superpower. Like, I'm visualizing where I want to go. I'm co-creating with the universe. I'm not just like, the universe is happening to me. And
Right.
I'm actually like co-creating with it. And I realize how my thoughts impact what happens. And I realize how I get triggered, and I understand myself and my trauma. It's like all that learning, I just feel like, makes us more capable human beings.
There's a richer truth there,
Yeah.
richer,
Yeah.
full truth
Yeah.
there. And I was listening to someone yesterday, Tara Brock or something, and talking about in the Chinese language, the word for head and heart are the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
and so I mean, at the end of this, I wanted the connection with my heart, and to feel that I'm leading with my heart, because I think in a sense our hearts, our bodies, that intelligence actually is tuned in more to the universe and the greater collective intelligence, as well as our own natural intelligence. And if we can allow that, even though we've been culturally conditioned otherwise, and we have conditioned tendencies that work against it, that's where the beauty, truth, goodness, fullness, richness,
100%. That's it.
healing
We're all
comes
doing.
from. Yeah, exactly.
And there's quotes from like Einstein and Steve Jobs and all these kind of really interesting, successful people. It's like, it did not come from the rational mind. It came from, and whatever it was that they were creating or developing, or whether it was science or technology, it was not their rational mind that created that. Something else emerged that then spoke to them or communicated with them, which I would say is this other intelligence, or it's this other intelligence, right? Now, of course, you need the mind to then figure out the program for all that happened, but the vision of it comes from a different place. And I think the fact that we're all here today is part of that dance. How do we listen to that? How do we make more space for that? How do we not just fill up our days with things?
I think those people, those philosophers, those scientists, they embrace a diversity, a richness in what they studied and learned with such, open-mindedness and beginner's mindedness. I think that's a big aspect of it as well. Just to sample and pull from diversity from everywhere.
Yeah.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Everything everywhere all at once. Yeah. And I think the most successful companies that I see, because I live in the kind of tech world, they realize they need everybody on the team. They need people who've been to college. They need people who haven't been to college. They need people who are grew up in the rural areas. They need people who grew up in the cities. They need people who
that
are
range,
this ethnicity and that other ethnicity, and immigrants and people not. And so that capacity to bring in all these different perspectives, particularly like at Apple, like Apple's design team is like made up of, I think, 300 or 400 people, and they're all over the freaking world from all different backgrounds, because that everybody who's buying an iPhone is from all the world. And
exactly,
you
we
can't
are
just have
the collective humanness of us. And I come from a high-tech background, all as well. It just brings to mind, there's a really good book by David Epstein called Range, and
Oh,
it's all about, he's a great storyteller as well, how we could all benefit from sampling and the diversity of the intermixing of thoughts and
Mhm.
experiences and backgrounds, and great book.
David
Range.
Epstein, Range. Okay,
Yeah, highly recommend it. Easy read. Lots of great stories.
cool. Writing it down now.
Anyways, I've talked for too long, and
You did not talk for too long. You perfect amount. So thank you for that. Anybody else would love to hear kind of how things are unfolding, and if you're having a really hard day or bad day, that's fine too. And you hate the people in your small group, that's okay too. But just curious if anybody else wants to share. You can unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand, but whatever is comfortable for you.
Well, I'm just going to, I don't know if it's related, but when I watched Tim, I never heard of Tim Walz. When I watched his son in tears,
Yeah.
I related so much to him. And when it was out in the public that he had this nonverbal learning disability or whatever,
Neurodivergent.
of course I look it up because I have to know everything about that.
You do, okay.
And I'm like, I think I have had this maybe my whole life.
Wow. Wow.
Which made school difficult for me.
Yeah, of course.
But there was a lot of, and it's been brought up in therapy that I might have these neurodivergent aspects of my personality. And I always thought, well, that's my brother. My brother's neurodivergent, not me. But when I read lots of the features, I felt like validated for how I felt. And it's okay to cry like that, and it's okay to be emotional like that. But I know that there was criticism on the other side of how he looked and what he did, or how it appeared. And that's the kind of criticism I think I would worry about for myself.
Got it. Yeah, and that you probably experienced.
And that I probably experienced.
You probably experienced people looking at you with ridicule and judgment because you were different.
And I didn't feel different.
Right. Exactly. For their idea of what a normal person should be was landed on you as this beautiful, sweet, loving, free child. And that must have been really, 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 really hard.
Well, my book I have is The Myth of Normal that I'm reading all the time.
Good. Yeah, Dad, I thank you for sharing that. For those of you who, maybe you caught it, but our possible new vice president, Tim Walz's son, it was at the convention. And after Tim Walz gave his talk, the son and the daughter both came up. And the son, as you had mentioned, is neurodivergent and was crying and expressing emotions in a way that most, I think, 17-year-old kids probably would not do, right? He was, but you can watch that on the video, and it's brought up this whole conversation, I think, in the culture about the importance of that, and the beauty that they welcome him and that they've had their own journey with him, and they're writing about that and sharing more about that. And from my perspective, they're doing a great job of saying, yes, there's some challenges and there's some gifts. right? Like both are true. Like there's some definite challenges with school and other things, and there's also some enormous gifts. And hopefully our society is becoming more knowledgeable and accepting that not everybody fits into this certain mold, and some people are just different. I would say, I've interviewed a lot of the kind of tech leaders and AI leaders, and I would say a decent number of them are neurodivergent. Probably the majority are neurodivergent. Not so good in some areas, freaking brilliant in other areas. But just that's their, they got really developed one part of the brain and other areas not so developed. And the more mature ones realize that, and they realize, oh, I need to develop these other parts of me, right? Like I'm super smart, super intelligent, but I'm actually my emotions, I don't know, or whatever that is. And I think that's the gift, Bonnie, is that we realize that we've came in with some particular personalities and their strengths and weaknesses. And how do we accept and love ourselves? And then how do we grow some of these other skill sets that we want that maybe we didn't have or we don't have? And I think that's the journey. But without acceptance, we're just constantly in a fixing state and a feeling of shame and blame, and I don't think anything is helpful from that, right? Like shame and blame is just nothing really quality will come from that. And thank you for sharing that. That's just such a sweet experience that you had watching him. And I sometimes wonder if I'm neurodivergent. My son tells me I am. My son's girlfriend tells me, she's like, I'm neurodivergent and you're kind of neurodivergent too. I know what they look like. And I'm like, really? I just lose stuff all the time. I don't know, but
Right.
yeah.
And one of my daughters, and she didn't go to school like me. And by the way, that not neuro, what was it, nonverbal learning
Oh, yeah.
disorder is not part of the DSM-5. It's not,
Okay.
it's not a diagnosable, I don't know
Okay,
how,
got it.
kind of
Got it.
illness or whatever. So, and now of course I'm losing my train of thought because that's
You said something about your daughter. You said something about your daughter.
oh, so she would say, so she's read a lot. So she would say, I feel so strongly about this and strongly about that. And she would say, well, that's a lot of people who are on the spectrum feel that, or
Yeah.
things that I am about. The fact that I can't read a map.
Yeah.
They all look upside down to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she would comment, well, Mom, I think you should take this test. And when she first said it, I literally felt insulted.
Mhm.
I thought it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I took this little short test, which is, and I came up as on the spectrum.
Mhm.
And it, but immediately I was defensive, and I think shame. I was
Yeah.
shamed.
Yeah.
And so that's part of what I'm going through, is not being ashamed of it, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
shame that goes with
Yeah.
that.
No, thank you so much for bringing that up. That was my first response too. And my son and his girlfriend were like, I think you're neurodivergent and there's medication for that. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to take medication, but we're all these unique expressions of humanity, right? Like we're all like, none of us are the same, and we all come with gifts, and that there's something of normal, as Gabor talks about, right? Like
The myth of there's no norm, there isn't
yeah.
a norm.
Gandhi used to say, it's no sign of success to be healthy in a sick world or something so show me who success is, like, show me what success is. Like there's successful people who've made a lot of money, and as I mentioned, like they can't sit quietly by themselves for a second. And there's people who have mastered this or mastered that, and they drink alcohol every night to go to bed, or, I don't know. Everybody just has their own things that we're all working on. And I think to the extent we have some love and forgiveness for ourselves, and we can identify some of the stories that society tells us, because I think
Right.
that some of these stories, whether the kids actually said it, or they thought it, or we felt, right, this kind of judgment towards
Right.
us.
Right.
How do we understand ourselves enough to know who we are so that we're showing up, even if the external world is saying this or saying that, like we know ourselves to such a degree that that doesn't impact us in the way that it did when we were 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 when we were young and we didn't really know any better. And I feel like there's some healing for me, and maybe it sounds for you too, around some of those experiences where I'm seen as different and other and kind of ostracized from the community, and realizing like none of us get to be in the position of power, like there's nobody's normal. Gabor is definitely not normal, but like some of us are not more normal than others, but yeah. Um, I do think that somewhere where is our superpower? And sometimes our superpower is in our little bit of a weirdness. I was, I do these events and I love to talk to people. And my mom was, she's seen an intuitive or talking to a friend or something. And she said that her great grandfather, who was the mayor of Grand Rapids, Michigan or something, he used to walk in the middle of the street so he could talk to people on both sides of the street, I guess. So he was always like very talkative. And that's me. Like I don't walk down the middle of the street, but like I have a part of me that really wants to be quiet by myself. Then I have a part of me that just loves to kind of talk to people. And whether it's elevators or wherever, and my son and kids are sometimes they're like just like, oh my God, Dad, just stop it already. Like just like we just want to be by ourselves. But that's just naturally who I am, right? Like I'm naturally certain ways, and you're naturally probably certain ways too, right? Like we all come with our own natural ways. And so when we're exploring purpose, how do we live our purpose not as a response to that, but with the understanding of some of those unique differences that we might have? Like if that was a gift to us, how would we bring that gift into the world? And I think that's a different question than like, how do I become like all these other people?
Right. 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 Don't
Yeah,
want to
and
be all
maybe,
those.
if Tim Waltz, I mean, I think one of the beautiful things about this is that one, that they welcome their son and love their son and be like, you just show up at the DNC and you do whatever you're going to do, right? Cry, scream, love, like we accept you and you're one of us. Like 20 years ago, they probably would be like, oh yeah, no, he can't come up. Like we have to look this certain way and everyone has to like be proper and whatever else. And what an amazing world we live in now where that is not the norm, at least in the Democratic Party. I don't know other parties, but like that was like, no, we bring people up regardless of their kind of space that they're in. Like we welcome people. And I think that was really powerful. And maybe more people will come out and feel like, oh, this is an acceptable, condition or acceptable personality orientation. Um, and we can create a more better loving world, as part of that. I mean, it's all happening hopefully perfectly.
It made me feel more welcome. I don't know why, but it did. It just made me feel like that I was welcome.
That's beautiful. And that's a feeling that I think so. Dick Schwartz, we're doing this series with him in September, if you can join it. But one of the pieces that he says is,
I am joining it.
oh, cool. It's actually about finding peace with those parts of yourself. Right? So it's like, well, if my kid just accepted me or this person just accepted me, it's like, well, what part of us does not accept ourselves? And when we clear that out, it doesn't matter as much whether other people accept us. And also people are more likely to accept us because we just carry ourselves differently. And how do we tap into, is there part of me or you or whoever who really doesn't quite accept us as we are? And how do we listen to that part, engage with that part, and also learn to let go of that part so that we can then show up differently? And I think sometimes my tendency always is like, oh, if they just accepted me or they just did this or this person, but realizing it's actually inside me. And my job is to really tend to myself. And then that's the main shift that needs to happen. And maybe we can play more in that world here today too, where just like, what part of ourselves, if any, don't believe that we're worthy? Right? Don't
And
believe.
not to wear a mask of pretending you're something else. I
Exactly.
don't want to wear
Yeah.
that mask
Yeah.
because I think that's what feels hurtful to me, to constantly have to wear that mask of this is how people want me to be
Yeah.
and how I have to be accepted, because even if I'm accepted, I'm not accepted for me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
Yeah,
accepted for
exactly.
the mask, which
Yeah.
is even more harmful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to constantly have the mask on, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think, what's the remedy for that?
Not wear the mask.
And so what does
You
that,
know,
what does that look like?
risk being yourself
Yeah.
and accepting the criticism.
Yeah. Or the perceived criticism
Or the
sometimes,
perceived
right?
criticism, or that's their opinion.
Yeah.
That's not what I think about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people might be like, oh my God, thank you. I'm going to take my mask off too. And some people,
That's right.
right? Like
Right.
probably the whole spectrum will happen. We'll be criticized by some, and other people will be like, oh my God, like you are so real. Thank you so much.
Well, when I was at the seminar and I said, is it okay to cry? And a bunch of people were crying. You know, I didn't know
yeah.
that people were crying. I just was in my own crying.
Yeah. 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 So there's some ways in which change happens because one person listens to something, right? Like crying is allowed and enough people cry. Like I saw this interesting thing where I was noticing people hugging each other on stage. And then I remember there was a time where that did not happen. You would not see people hugging one another, right? Like they would shake hands, families would come up. And now the parents hug the kids hug the parents, like, and I think Republican, Democrat, whatever convention, I'm like, somebody shifted that, right? It's a little bit like smoking. Like smoking used to be not one person decided we're not going to smoke anymore in public or whatever, or in restaurants. Enough people are like, we're not going to smoke in restaurants. All of a sudden, there's no more smoking. And it wasn't like one person decided hugs are good. It's good to hug people. But something happened where enough people started hugging one another. And now, at least where I live, like hugging is very accepted. And watching the DNC, like people would come up and hug one another and a beautiful, like real, genuine hugs. And it's just so interesting to see that that's how the change happens, is you showing up as you are, invites other people to show up as they are. And then all of a sudden there's now this new momentum, right? To show up how you
And
are.
the pandemic sort of stopped that. If you were a hugger before the pandemic,
Yeah.
you were not going to be a hugger after. And to get to the hugging was kind of
Yeah.
hard because you
Yeah.
don't want to touch anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, hopefully that's coming back as we realize that COVID isn't what it used to be. I mean, it's still around, but it's not maybe around in the way it used to be. But and since some people, their general expression is to not hug, which is totally fine too, right? Like everybody has their own, everybody has just their own expression and their own types of intelligence. And some people I know who are very physical, like they just love to touch. Some people hate to be touched. Some people love to listen to music and sound. Some people love visual. Some people love poetry. Some people love rap. I don't know. There's just so many different expressions. And one of the things I do appreciate about the United States in some ways is it's a place where it's a melting pot, right? So you have Kamala Harris from an Indian family and a Jamaican dad raised in kind of middle class Oakland with her running mate who is from Nebraska, born in Nebraska, and completely different environment, white family, white parents, and they're coming together as a team to try to run the country as vice president and president. Like, where else would that happen with such different backgrounds? And I think, as much as I criticize America and all of its military orientation, capitalist orientation, there's also real sweetness in the fact that those multiple divergent pathways can find like collaboration together, and where people like Obama and Kamala Harris can have weird names and be from different ethnic groups than everybody before them and still win potentially. Yeah. Yeah, potentially. So I think that's beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing so intimately. I really appreciate. I hope this is a larger conversation that our society has and our world has, which is, like you said, what is normal, and can we just like release this idea that there's this normal? And I think there's like classist issues where they're like, are you in the top class? Are you in the bottom? Like, here's how worthy people walk in the world. And they do this, and they smile this way, and they dress this way, and they talk this way. And it's like, oh my God, can we just retire that? It's like from the old king and queen nobility kind of world of like, oh, here's all the ways in which yeah, we should show up versus what our natural expression is to show up. Yeah. So anyone else? We're going to take a break, a lunch break, and I think some of you, anything else anybody wants to say before we take a break? Tony, did you have your hand up? Let's see. Sorry, Tony, did you have your hand up, or are you just
No,
waiting?
I was just basically saying bon appetit.
Oh,
And
bon appetit. So let's get back in about, let's say, an hour and 25. So 1:30 Pacific. That's about an hour and 25 minutes. Does that sound good?
beautiful.
And you can just leave this on, or well, you can sign off and sign back on, or you can also just like, if there's a way to put mute on and video off, and then we'll see you back here at 1:30 Pacific. All right, thanks.
Back.
Back, everyone. All right, so maybe we'll do a short meditation, and I know some people might be bouncing on a little late, but we'll do at least for me, a post-lunch meditation. So just take a moment to, if you can put away the things on your table or in your hands, and sit in a way that's comfortable to your body. And let your eyes close and just tune into your self right now, just for a minute. And taking a couple of deep breaths. And just think about for a moment what it was that brought you here today. There was a particular desire or intention. And can you tap into that desire? Maybe that desire was to know yourself better, or knowing that life is impermanent, wanting to be more engaged in whatever heartbeats you have left. Just see if you can tap into that for a moment. What was it that drew you here? And how do we honor and appreciate and listen to and support that particular part of you? Spending just another minute now, just connecting to whatever that inclination, inspiration was that brought you here today. Seeing if these next couple hours we spend can be a way to nurture and support that. So when you're ready, gently open your eyes. So we have about 3 more hours. We're going to end at 4:30 today. So we have about 3 more hours. We will take a formal break. Somebody had asked about more formal breaks, so we'll have a formal break. So if you need to go outside or go to the bathroom or get a snack or whatever you do, we'll have those breaks. One of the things I want to explore this afternoon, there's a couple parts, but one of the pieces is how do we begin? We were talking earlier about, how much the mind and kind of the analytical mind can kind of control our lives, and how important it is to also listen to what we might call our heart or our spiritual self or our intuition or whatever you want to call it. So the next thing I want to do is to invite us into a writing exercise. And the writing exercise is you writing a message to yourself that's kind of channeled or from that part of you. So you might call it your wise self, your spiritual self, your essence, your true self, whatever you want to call it. The name really doesn't matter. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit down with hopefully a pen and paper. If you want to do it on your phone or computer, you can, but hopefully with a pen and paper. And we're going to ask that part, what does it want to say to us? What messages does it have for us right now in our life? I don't know where people live, or you can walk outside if you're in nature. It's a beautiful place to do this. If you're not in nature and you're in an apartment in New York City or London or wherever, you can sit in your apartment. But I want to take about 30 minutes and we're going to really tap into how do we connect with that part of us? And again, it goes by all these different names. And then how do we begin to listen to it? And what is its message? What's its guidance? And see what happens. If it seems a little weird, it might be a little weird, but probably something will emerge from that little weirdness, and just see what that part of you has to say. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? All right. And remember, if there's a pause, if for like 2 or 3 minutes there's nothing, that's totally fine. All you're doing is sitting comfortable place as possible, and you're asking, what is your message, or what does my heart want to say to me, or intuition or spirit or self, or whatever language you want to use? What is the message it wants to share with me? And just see what your hand does. Like, let that, as best you can, like, try not to think like rationally, like, what, that doesn't make sense, or what does that mean? Just write out whatever it is that's coming through. You might understand it, you might not understand it. It might be something you write out and like later today or tomorrow or some point you look at it and be like, oh my goodness, that now makes sense. So it might not make sense now, but hopefully it will make sense later. And we'll just see what emerges as we cultivate that voice and listen to that voice. Does that make sense? All good? All right, so we'll do this for 30 minutes. We'll go outside or go wherever you're comfortable. I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes and then we'll be back here then. All right, see you soon. I think that's the second. Catherine, is that the second animal I've seen today in your lap?
This is Murphy. He's looking for a home. He's
Oh.
old and half blind. And this is
Oh.
gives me joy.
Sweet. Oh, but you've just hanging out with them for a short time?
Foster, yeah. The other one was the foster fail, but this is Murphy.
Okay.
Oh,
Sweet.
He makes
How old
everyone.
How old is Murphy?
Estimated 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Half
what a sweetheart.
blind. He's very sweet.
And where do you live?
Philadelphia.
Okay, so we have to come to Philadelphia. Grab
Yes.
it. That's very, very sweet. Thank you for doing that in the world. I've never done that. I've adopted dogs, but I've never
It's a little selfish dog time. Win-win.
Yeah. So how was that? I'm curious, how was that experience? Did it feel like you were able to tap into something? Did it feel like there was stuff coming through, or did it feel like there was blockages, or how was that? when you actually wrote?
I'll start, for this is like, I get paid to give advice to other people, and why can't I give it to myself more easily? So this was actually super helpful. I kind of got what I needed out of it in far less than 30 minutes. And for me, it was really, like, why do I feel stuck on my previous group heard? Like, I have this huge laundry list of like all the things that I know I want to do to nurture and
Mhm.
it's not that I don't have time. So what is the problem? And I think for me that it's like a shift from being very goal oriented, where
Yeah.
some of these are kind of big goals.
Yeah.
And it's not about the goals anymore. It's really
Yeah.
like, it is about coming to more presence and like, what can I do today?
Yeah.
Not like write a book, learn Italian, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So and I can do today. I know I can do
Yeah.
today, but I'm kind
Yeah.
of being a procrastinator, and like the big goals just aren't working for me anymore. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Right.
So to me, that was helpful. Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Me? No, sure.
Okay. Well, one thing I learned from Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle does this thing with people where he asks them, so what problem do you have right now? And it always stumps people because they're like, well, he's like, no, right now, in this moment,
Mhm.
what problem do we have?
I mean, it could be like, I'm hungry. I have to go to the bathroom or something.
Yeah, that could be, but
That's
that's more
about
of
it.
like, or there could be a pain. It's something to attend to.
Right.
But how many of our problems are in our minds and how many of our problems are actually here right now?
Mhm.
I think he's trying to point to the fact that so many of our problems are about something not here right now. Like I'm missing something and someday I'll have done this, or someday I'll do this, or like for me, a lot of it's comparison. Like I'll see somebody else doing something and I'll think less of myself and this is why social media is so bad.
Mhm.
I'll think less of myself because I'll see them in some other situation. So the fact that I'm feeling lack has nothing to do with anything really. It's just my mental story that I tell myself that there's something wrong with me. So I think that's something interesting you can explore. Maybe you find it helpful, maybe not, but I find it sometimes helpful to ask what's my problem right now?
Mhm.
And I usually don't have many. Yeah, like you said, like I have to go to the bathroom or
Mhm.
there might be a pain in my body somewhere. That but so there's challenges, right? Which inevitably in life there's challenges and we need to tend to them, but how do our challenges then become problems? And the problems are kind of what we like continue to just replay and replay and replay, and they have kind of a weight to them, or like it's like it's a weight and a heaviness. And I think that's one of the interesting things to explore, which is just like how do we stay present and attend to what's here right now? And I had this thing with goals where I don't know, people say like, well, I have these goals and I can't meet these goals. And I'm like, well, what do it's like assuming that like, let's say I'm gonna have a goal of running 20 miles a day. Like that's just not possible. That we're healthy. So just because you have the goal doesn't mean that you should do it, right? Doesn't mean that you're a bad person for not running 20 miles a day, because like the goal needs to be adjusted. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I explore with is something happening by me or through me? And I don't know if you've explored the differentiation of these sometimes, um, but if it's by me, then I have to do this. I'm writing this book. I'm taking on this task. There's a lot of like me and willpower involved. And then sometimes there's another way of relating, which is like it's just coming through me. I'm writing this book and it's coming through me, which means that my job is less to like knock the door down, and my job is actually just to kind of like listen and follow the energy. And like, we're being pulled by something bigger and deeper than us.
Mhm.
And to me, that's the sweet spot. Can we find those things where, whether it's, writing a book or whatever action, where it feels like something bigger than us is moving us through, versus like my willpower, I'm going to get up every day and write for 2 hours or whatever it is. That that may not be what our system can do or needs or wants, or, you know, it's like right for our system. So one of the questions I often ask is, where does energy want to go? What is naturally wants to come forth? So what do you do in your free time that feels, you know, like not forced? Does that make any sense at all? Is that helpful?
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
you saw it at the beginning and when you turned on.
yeah, because
Yeah.
these days it's like, oh my God, everyone has a podcast. It's like the competition is so crazy, you know, like, and kids grow up these days. They're like, they have to get these numbers of followers and they have to graduate from this college. And it's like, there's all these shoulds of life that I think get on us. And then our job is, what is actually a should that's being, one of my teachers used to say, we've been should on our entire lives. Like,
Mhm.
what is a should that's like lying on top of us that we think. I remember when I wrote my first book, because I just dropped out of college, and so I had this sense of like little unworthiness because a lot of my friends are going to college and get degrees, and I thought, I'm going to write a book, and once I write this book, then I'll be able to say I'm an author, which is like big deal, right? I'm an author, and so I put together this book, write the book, go to the bookstore, and it's in this one. It's like covers like this one little piece, you know, on the thing. And the satisfaction that I hoped just was not there at all. Like
Mhm.
Oprah never called, and you know, I expected this thing. And so I think, you know, one of the things to explore is with any of this, you know, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a sense of lack and hoping that that thing will fill us in some way?
Mhm.
Or is it coming from a place of fullness and like, wow, I have something to say, I want to say it. Or I have something I want to do, I want to do it. I have, it's like a natural life unfoldment. And those aren't easy to decipher for me sometimes. Like
Mhm.
sometimes the conditioning is so strong. It's like, oh, I thought that was like, uh, you know, more of a natural inclination, but then I realized later it's like, oh, that was just like old patterning in my life of me trying to compete with so and so or do better than this person. And so I think, you know, I think I see some of the pressure that goal setting gets with people, and it's kind of sad, right? Because it's like, oh my goodness, you're such this dear person with this big open heart, and then we come up with these pressures on ourselves. So I do think that it's really interesting just to look at that and kind of be like, all right, what if my goal is to be present and to listen,
Mhm.
and if something wants to happen, it'll happen. Um, that said, I try to meditate every day and I don't always feel like meditating, but I know that it's helpful. So I'll make myself meditate when I don't feel
Mhm.
like it. Um, but again, it's hopefully driven by a desire to wake up and to be more present. And I think that's probably the better route to do than I'm going to meet my goals. But I'm
Yeah,
curious.
and I mean, I guess for me, the challenge is most of what's on my list or whatever actually is stuff I like, I really just want to do. Like I actually have let go of a lot of the external
Yeah,
stuff pretty successfully. There's a few things in there that, you know, maybe are still in that category, but it's kind of like the only way I know to move towards something is to have the structure of like
yeah,
a goal, you know,
yeah,
and kind of a big thing, but then it becomes binary. And it's like, okay, I either like did it all or I haven't done
yeah,
anything. And
yeah,
so it's sort of that hard to get the momentum going. So
yeah,
changing for me, just change. This is stuff I want to do, and it's like bursting. Like I've spent a couple years like writing it in my head, and it
mhm,
really wants to come out.
yeah,
And I just have to. I think I just have to get out of the binary, like
yeah,
either it's done or nothing.
yeah,
And just say, what can I do today that's going to make me
yeah.
feel good about this? And
Beautiful.
so for me, it's not anymore, has been in the
Mhm.
past, but it's really not anymore so much like the lack. I have to like make up
Right,
for something.
right,
So again,
right.
there's a few areas like, you know, like the exercise and everything like that. But um, but the stuff that's really
Yeah,
so it's helpful to think about though. And I mean, I think for me, like almost having the goal, I just have to think about it in a different way of like,
yeah,
it's no longer the goal is the meaning, but the goal gives some structure.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. We're going to do a visualization soon that hopefully will kind of
yeah,
give you
that's
more
really good.
information in
Thank
that
you.
area. And I also say, one of my teachers, Stephen Levine, used to say, He used to say that there's the pain that causes more pain and the pain that ends pain. And what he meant by that was there's a lot of pain in life, like just anger and hatred and rudeness and meanness that's like it just creates more pain, right? Like we have pain and we pass it on to somebody else, and then they pass it on to their kids, or somebody's like really upset with us, so we get upset with somebody else. It's just this pattern of pain moving around the world. But he says there's this other pain that we have, which is just like opening a clenched fist. We've had our fists clenched really tightly and we're walking through an airport with a bag or something. And then after 5 or 10 minutes, we start to open our fist. It's going to be painful, right? It's not going to be easy. But that pain is one of expansion. It's one of expansion and deepening. And so he's like, so one of the kind of practices or challenges in life is to know, like, is this discomfort leading to greater openness? Or is this discomfort kind of like there because it's kind of increasing discomfort on my body and in my relationships and things like that? And I think some of the things you talked about, like writing a book, I've written several, it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard. But do we feel like it's the opening that we want to go to, then that hard work is worth it. Just like exercise. I have a few friends who say exercise is fun. I'm like, and most people, I don't know if it's fun. It's hard, right? But we know the benefits of it's like a pain that we're willing to experience, because we also know that maybe at 70 or 80 or whatever, we're also still able to walk and run and do things that we want to do. So it's an opening or healthy difficulty, right? And so I do think that sometimes one of the things I've done is kind of played with, all right, Soren, I give you permission. You don't have to write this book. I don't actually think it's right to write the book. And I'll notice what my response is. Is my response relief? Or is my response like, hell no, this is like what I'm supposed to do. And it gives you insight, right? As to like, what is the driver there? And if the driver is, this is really what I'm supposed to do. My partner wrote a book for 3 or 4 years, and she got up at like, probably because the kids would need to get ready for school, and then she had a job. So she would get up at like 5 a.m., right? Like 5 to 7 most days. And then feed the kids breakfast at 7. And then there would be her work. But she wanted to do it so bad. And that was like one little window she had. And so there is a possibility if we really focus on something, but it needs to come, I think, from a loving, from a love space and not a should space. I think the love space is where it's at. Yeah, but I'm excited to see, and we'll do a visualization here coming up, which hopefully plays in this area for you. Do you know the difference? Have you read any of what's her first name? I forget her first name. Carol Dweck, and she writes about growth mindset.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which they talk to about kids all the time. But Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft, has been very actively bringing it into Microsoft. So he took over Microsoft after Steve Ballmer, who would just had a very different way of running Microsoft, scream, yell, all that kind of stuff. And Satya knew that wasn't going to work there. So he's like, we need the growth mindset. We need to teach every employee at Microsoft the difference between the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. I need to practice that. And the fixed mindset is all around identity, right? Like, I am a this, and therefore I have to do well. So kids who are really smart and who are told they're smart often have a hard time learning new things because they fail at first and they think, oh, I'm not smart, I'm dumb. And because they have that identity, they don't continue learning, versus the growth mindset where they don't take on that identity and they just see a challenge and they're like, oh my goodness, I get a challenge. Amazing. I have to expand myself, right? I have to grow who I am to meet this challenge. And as simple as that is, I keep coming back to it in my life, which is just like, how am I relating to this? I'm relating to this as a problem or a challenge or an opportunity. Is this here to punish me or to expand me? Eckhart Tolle always likes to say, the world is not here to make you happy, it's here to wake you up. I was like, that's hard sometimes, but it's probably true. I don't know if the world is here to make us happy, but it's probably more likely here to wake us up. And how do we look at life and the challenges of life as opportunities to wake us up? which doesn't mean we have to deny our rage and anger and shame and all the stuff that happens, but that kind of spiritual orientation, I think, is really, really powerful. And part of my hope with this group, and maybe hopefully we'll do more of these, is everybody around us often really cultivates our identity, and there's very few people sometimes that cultivate our spirit. And my hope is in the small groups and things we've done here, you feel like there's people without an agenda for you. They're not thinking you should do this or should do that. They're just here to listen to you and to try to support your spirit. And I think that's just incredible medicine right now on our planet, is how do we come together to support our spirit without anybody putting their agenda on us, but really just listening deeply. And my hope would be, if we can do that here, we can do that with our friends and family more, that's what changes the world, is people feeling seen and heard. And and we can kind of share that gift.
Mhm.
Yeah. And super excited to see what you want to do or don't want to do. Anything
you.
you want to add or share?
What's that?
Anything you want to add or share?
No, that's helpful. Yeah. And I mean, the growth mindset, that's been very, very important to me. I read that
Yeah, has it good?
several years ago as sort of part of this transition period. And so it's helpful to put it in that framework too.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else want to talk about what it was like to write from your spiritual self? Yeah, Bonnie.
I am not the opposite of goal oriented. I don't want to have any goals because I don't want to fail.
Mm.
And I
And
have,
if you fail, what does that mean? If you fail, what does that mean?
what does that mean? It means I'm not smart.
Okay.
I'm not worthy. I'm a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to have goal. I can't even think. The only goal I wanted to have was children, and I had 4 of them. Oh, and I did want to go to school and become a therapist, which I didn't do, but I did get the degree.
Okay. So that was a goal.
That was a goal, and I graduated,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't think I could. I didn't think I could go to school and
Yeah.
graduate. So so I have the opposite of, I don't want to go. Everything has to be loose, and that's why I feel like I don't know what I want to do. I need to be anchored. I think I want some goals in there.
Yeah. So, well, tell us what is that like when you resist having goals? What is your life like when goals are kind of avoided, let's say?
It avoids risking anything that might help me to grow.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't want to go through the pain.
Right. Yeah. That sometimes that short-term pain, when that short-term pain is avoided, you don't get to the other. It's like exercise or anything. You don't get to the other side.
Right.
Is some kind of new learning, because we're like, well, it'll be uncomfortable for a while, so I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Right.
So where are you at now, if you don't mind sharing? Like, where are you? Because you showed up here, and there's definitely opening and
here. I signed up for your next month thing.
Cool. You have a lot of life force in you. From I don't know how other people perceive you, but I perceive you as somebody with a lot of life force.
I have been told that.
So it's not like you want to sit around and not do anything. It feels like you've got a lot of energy moving through you, and a lot of passion, and a lot of like just joy and different things. So I guess my question would be, if you weren't, I know you are afraid to fail, but if you weren't afraid, let's just pretend for a minute that you were not afraid to fail. Like that was not here. What would you do?
Well, I recently volunteered for something I wouldn't have. I'm taking risks.
Okay.
um, and, and not so afraid that taking risks can mean failure, but you could grow from that failure, that it's not a dead end.
Yeah.
You can move through it.
Yeah. It's just data.
Yeah.
So if you weren't afraid to fail, you said you'd volunteer more. What else, anything else? What else? How would you show up in the world?
Well, I would travel because I feel like I haven't gone anywhere and I would love to see other places.
Yeah. Anywhere in particular?
Well, I've always wanted to see, I forgot what it's called, the the monuments in England that.
Oh, Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Okay. Yes.
Stonehenge.
I want to go, and I've never been there. I've never
And
been
where do you,
to England.
remind me where you live? Sorry.
I live in Southern California.
Okay.
So,
So there might even be a direct from LA to London, but yeah, there's.
oh, absolutely. I'm sure there is.
Okay.
But
Stonehenge,
traveling,
cool.
yeah. So that's the kind of thing. Things that I couldn't do because of finances, because of, well, finance is all mixed up when you're raising
4
kids.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So what does the voice say? So let's say you do have the resources, or you save the resources, and let's say you go to Stonehenge and you hate it, or you don't like it, or something happens. You fail, whatever failure looks like.
yeah, it's not the, yeah. It doesn't really matter to me. That part doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Because I got the opportunity to do something I never thought I would get the opportunity to do. Is I got to ride on the blimp. And it's based here in Southern California, but you can't just make an appointment. You have to, it has to be an invitation, or it has to, it's not, and I don't even know how you do it now, but I was given the opportunity, and there's only 6 spots in the actual blimp. So it's not, I actually got, I mean, it was exciting, but I can't explain what I was feeling, but it's like I finally got to do something I thought I would never get the opportunity to do. I don't know. It felt didn't feel like a failure. That felt like it wasn't exact. Like, I didn't realize there's only 6 spots in this blimp. Obviously you were, very intimate area. Looking down at the area that you actually live in and around. Anyway, I got a lot out of it. So
awesome.
When I was thinking I would like to do something like that, the Stonehenge is the other thing that I wanted to go visit, but that's a longer ride.
You might be able to take a blimp to Stonehenge, but that would be hard. Yeah, that's probably a plane. It's not that hard though to get a flight to London and get from London to Stonehenge.
No. The flight, even the resources isn't the problem. It's the chronic pain, the
foreign country, and
yeah. Well, at least they speak English.
they do.
Like, I go to all my daughters
They speak better English than we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you can understand them, but like when I've been to Mexico, but all my daughters can speak Spanish, so I feel real comfortable. I didn't even want to go to Mexico without them, but they don't want to necessarily go with me.
Yeah. I go to Mexico quite a bit. I don't speak Spanish, but
really?
yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think, to the extent that you can get to know those voices, and if there was there some childhood failure you had that you feel like kind of ignited this pattern, or do you know where the origins of this pattern came?
I don't, because I got married. Yeah, I got married at 16 and a half, so I didn't have much of a childhood. And
wow.
And took on, a lot of responsibility as a teenager. Even both of us, my ex-husband and I did. He's only 2.5 years older than me, but he,
I didn't know you
his-
can get married at 16 and a half, but I guess you can.
pardon?
I didn't know you could get married at 16 and a half, but I guess you can.
Well, yeah, this was in 1968.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my mother had to sign, because when we went to our apartment, I noticed it was almost like you have to have someone over 16 or 18 to be
Yeah.
in the pool. And I'm like, I barely made it to the pool.
Wow.
But
Okay.
I was going to have a baby. That's what you did in
Oh,
1968.
right.
You got married and had a baby.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So you can't really associate that with a particular event, but
No.
you can know that you had to cut your childhood off very early.
Right.
And there was a lot of fear about making a mistake, because if you made a mistake, somehow there would be some negative repercussions, right? Like, I know a lot of people where if I make a mistake, like, one of the greatest kind of, I think, drivers of humans is to feel like they belong.
Hmm.
And sometimes when they do something and all of a sudden they're kicked out of the group, right? Like, maybe you got pregnant and then all your friends, you have to go somewhere else, so you're not
Right.
included. Those sometimes are the biggest pains, because we have this feeling of then being othered or lonely or kicked out. And there's such this natural longing, I think, in humans to feel wanting to be accepted in a tribe, and accepted in a group of people. And so I could definitely see how any experiences we have that then kicks us out of that tribe are very, very painful. And it doesn't really matter what age or what our situation is or however that goes, but we want to be connected to other people. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, I think it'll be interesting to hear how that journey goes for you in terms of, so what are we going to do in September, which will be super interesting with Dick Schwartz and Van Jones and others, is the IFS model looks
Yes.
at different parts.
Right.
So there's a part of you that really, really wants to go and travel more and put yourself out there more. And then there's another part that's like, oh, no, you don't. This will not be good. What if you what
Right.
if you have a bad time and you come back, you have to tell all your friends you spent all this time and all this money and did this bad thing? Or what if your body starts really hurting and you're not anywhere where anybody can help you, and then you get this and that? So there's this other part that's like, no, my job is to make you comfortable, right? Like, you're comfortable at home.
Right.
You're comfortable not going too far from home. Like, that's my job. My job is just like, keep you comfortable. And we all have these parts. Then the other part that's like, I don't want to just be comfortable and die here, like, later on.
Yeah.
Like, come on, take me out in the world.
Yeah.
And so with some models, they're just like, all right, make the one part destroy the other part. Like, make the one part that wants to go out in the world, just tell the other one to shut up, and you just do it. And with Dick's model, you try to, which I really like,
Integrate them.
you try to integrate them and hear what they're saying and hear their concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also talk to that younger part and say, well, I hear what you're saying, and I know you're scared, and we'll be okay. I'll take care of you. We could also get hurt here. Like, we can get hurt anywhere, but I hear your concerns, and I totally understand your concerns. Safety is really important. And this will be really important for my safety as a human being, to know that I can go here and travel. Anyway, so, you develop that dialogue, which I really like. And we'll do more of that.
Yeah, and all things I would say to one of my children, all
Yeah.
grown up of them.
Right,
So
right.
that's why I have to think that I'm my own mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's I was going to write about this, but the one thing that at the Democratic convention, there was some conversations about reaching out across sides and and trying to make connections, which I totally support. And I think one of the missing pieces, at least for me, was we all have liberal and conservative inside us. These aren't just external things. Like, I'm mainly liberal, but I have a very conservative side on certain things, or would be identified as conservative. And I have friends who, don't believe in private property who look at me and are like, you're so conservative. Why don't you just open up? Or, they don't, whatever. They don't believe in driving cars, and I drive a car and they're like, you're just a loser. Um, so there's no model, right, that anybody can really stand on and say, I am this or that. But we can, we can do our best to be able to like learn what we can learn and show up in ways that we can show up and try to live not from those identities. I think that's dangerous when we start to live from these identities and to think we need to be a certain somebody in the world. And maybe you go on this trip and you get really scared, but that fear doesn't mean that you've failed. Some people are like, oh shit, I failed, I'm afraid, or I had a bad day. It's like, oh no, wow, I get to experience a bad day in London. What is that like? So it sounds like you're very much on that path. It's super exciting to see how that unfolds. Because otherwise you just go to extremes. Like I have a friend I know who's really afraid, and he goes on these crazy trips where I'm like, that's dangerous. Like there is an important voice that says, let's be careful, I think, right? You don't want it to run your life, but also not having a voice that says be careful can also be a little scary. Yeah. Thank you. Faith, did you want to say anything about that experience we did of the writing?
I just went out in the back. The sun came out in Los Angeles. And it feels so totally different here when it's sunny or gray.
Yeah. Well, you barely
and
get clouds in LA too, right?
That's right. And what I shared with my group this morning is that my husband died last year unexpectedly.
I'm
And
sorry.
thank you. And I'm not a litigious person, but he actually died because of something happened in the hospital. He was going to be discharged, and then the
Whoa.
night of the day of the discharge, things just spiraled out of control.
Oh no.
And I've never gone through shock before. Not that I haven't had hard things happen, but I've never experienced shock. And I went into shock, and we didn't even know why he died. He got COVID in the ICU. I mean, crazy, like a series of things that just
Yeah.
doesn't happen, really.
Yeah.
And I'm a good, I'm a good medical advocate. So all this stuff happened, and when things spiraled in a bizarre way, I kind of went into shock, and I knew that there's a neurobiology of loss, but
Yeah.
like I had thoughts in my head that weren't coming out of my mouth. I knew my cognitive skills dramatically suffered.
Mhm.
And at first I was sort of freaked out by that, and I thought, just let it be. My 2 adult sons were here when this happened, so I was so lucky for that.
Wow.
And until it wasn't until like 3 months after he died that I didn't want to meditate at first, because I just wanted to feel. I was afraid if I didn't really feel everything viscerally, I was going to sort of skip a step. I don't know why. And I have a regular practice, and I felt so hard, and I just couldn't imagine somebody could cry day and night forever. Like,
Oh,
I didn't even want to go into a CVS because I thought, great, I'll go in there, I'll burst into tears, and someone's going to wonder, what's that old lady in the corner crying about? Like I
yeah.
was hurt. So, then I wouldn't go anywhere without wearing sunglasses. And it just became this whole other thing. And obviously I wasn't expecting it. And I know through death, there's just so much wisdom. And I held on to that. And I felt grateful that I got to spend almost 34 years with my soulmate. I wasn't angry that I didn't have him here anymore.
Mhm.
Other stuff slowly built up. He and this, I'm leading to what came up when I was outside. Um, I haven't been able to unravel the tightness in my body about this. So
Mm.
he had a music partner who, when I came out and married my husband, I just took it on the chin. That was a relationship I needed to be a part of, and I was. And one of those
He had a music
relationships where
partner. So I'm sorry,
yes,
he played music with somebody who's very close.
yes,
Okay, got it.
all right, yes,
Yeah.
writing. He wrote with this other person who's an actor. I'm not the biggest fan of actors, um, but I took it on the chin, went along for the ride. So um, this person did a few heinous things to my husband before he died, and
Mm.
I said to my husband, I know this person's important to you, but forget about the four of us going out to eat. Like, I had resolved my feelings about his partner before my husband died, I thought, but I
Mhm.
didn't. And what
Yeah,
just came up for me in the backyard was, um, I think I've been harboring, I wanted him to apologize for certain things. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm waiting for forgiveness, but it wasn't forgiveness, actually. It was, I was holding and harboring resent.
Yeah.
And I can let go of that, I realized.
Wow.
And this has been like a trigger for me. Anytime he
Wow.
or his wife text me or call, it's like I make a thing over it. I'm very charged over it. And today I realized, no, I don't need to hold resentment. Forget about the other stuff.
Yeah.
And that was pretty huge. And then I also realized, um, my husband was really funny, and he's just one of those people who always thought he was going to die. So we all knew his wishes before he died, kind of.
Mhm.
And so I think, and my sons and I have had a united front from the moment he was pronounced, right? And that's a blessing. I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of families have even that.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And I know it's important to my husband that my sons and I honor his music, his legacy, whatever. And I worked in the music business, but doing very separate things. I'm not a writer, a songwriter. So just because it's like, just because I can do certain things, I doesn't mean I have to do them. And what
Mhm.
came up for me in the back was, I don't want to deal with his fans. I'm so grateful that they filled his whatever, but that's not my life. And I can
Yeah.
give myself permission to figure out how to be here without my husband.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to include dealing with his fans and his stuff.
Yeah.
I can still honor it without being a part of it. And I've been feeling, I didn't realize I felt this anxious about it, but I think I must have. And I can let go. I guess what I'm saying is, I can live a life and keep my husband's memory alive in whatever is a healing way for me. That's what I
Yeah.
think I'm trying to say.
That's beautiful. And
It's
so
really
all you
hard to
did
get
was,
to that.
so you got all this clarity just by going in your backyard and sitting and listening?
Well, I have to add, I meditate regularly.
Okay.
There's a group, I created this program at my synagogue I do the mindfulness and the rabbi does the teaching. And this
Oh,
morning,
wow.
right before I got online, it was about forgiveness. So, I mean, I work it. I mean, I really work
Right.
it, because when my mother died, my father wasn't available to my sister and my brother and I. And I decided when my husband died, I wouldn't do that to my kids. I
Mhm.
wasn't going to infect everybody with my misery.
Yeah.
And and I'm also learning for the first time um, to just, I don't have to be the decider. After this happened, I went into shock. I had emergency gallbladder surgery, and then I had sepsis for the last
Oh,
3 months
no.
of last year. And I was in and out of the hospital, and I've never been in a hospital. I was in and out of the hospital, and I had to let people help me. I mean, I
Yes.
really had to. I was kind of
Yeah.
sick. And so it's been a lot of learning. Maybe the universe took decisions away from me so I could see the message really clearly.
Mhm.
I had to let my sons help me. I wasn't their mom anymore. I was a member of their family, and we're kind of in this together. That was tough for me,
That's
to
huge.
not be the decider, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was, and
People in the
and I'm
gift
just really
world
trying.
often, it's so hard to receive people who give a lot.
It's really hard to
So
believe.
hard
I
to
mean,
receive.
that was hard. And, like my son's infusing me with antibiotic. I mean, I needed help. I couldn't have done that. And it's been like, I feel a little upside down, because in my decider mind, the way things once were, it's kind of like just, those snow globes, you just shake them
Yep.
up. I feel like I'm in a snow globe, and I'm shaking it up, and wherever things land, they land. Learning kindness,
Yep.
learning to let people do for me, learning
Yep.
that if I don't have an idea of what I want to do in 10 minutes, I can just be.
Yeah.
And what Catherine and I both agreed to earlier is, Soren, I love Netflix. And because of my cognition, I can't do movies actually yet. I can do short episodic things, and I've binged every cooking show, and I don't cook.
Yep.
Um, I also watch a lot of ballerinas. I don't dance, but I just love watching it. And just, reconnecting to things I think I always loved, but my husband didn't love it, so I just
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it. I mean, I wasn't, saying I couldn't do it, but we just did other things. I
Yeah.
discovered I really kind of like football. and basketball, and
Wow.
Olympics.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the other thing I wanted to add, I don't want to take up everybody's time too much, but the other thing I wanted to add was, could you believe how many times in the last 4 days we heard the words compassionate leadership?
Yep.
I'm telling you, it just melted my heart. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
are these all mindful people here? And of course they aren't, but
Maybe,
it
I
was
don't
really,
know. They could be. They could totally be. I actually don't know.
I would like to think maybe Kamala could be, but I think she's kind of too big. I really do. Well, maybe in their own way. I shouldn't disparage that, but
Give it their own way.
it was just so beautiful, and it was said so comfortably and easily. Like it wasn't new vernacular. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, in our communities, we always hear that, but
Yeah.
hearing it at the DNC was like, this is my world. This is my America. These are my Democrats.
Yeah.
And I just felt so much love. And really, I realized it had less to do about Democratic policy and more to do with inclusion and freedom and safety.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel safe when Trump was president. I don't know about you guys, but I like to feel safe. My husband made me feel safe. And to me,
Yeah.
safety is love. You know, that's
Yeah. Oh, I'm
so.
so sorry that he passed away, and I can tell how much he meant to you and you meant to him, I'm sure. Yeah, and
Thank you.
that safety is so important, right? Safety is just
Mhm.
so, some of it is inside us, right? Like some of it is we can access safety inside us and connect to that, and some of it is, it's so amazing to have a loved one to be able to support that feeling of connection. And my partner, she's very close to this great aunt and uncle, and he died at about 92 years old, about like a month ago, or maybe a month or 2 months ago, her great uncle. And so for 60 years they had been together, you know, he
That's
and
a lot.
his wife. And then just 2 days ago she passed away. She had a fall. She went in the nursing home, got COVID, and then before we knew it, had like passed. And you know, you can come up with 10,000 different reasons, but she, I think living was so hard after 60 years and at 84. And um, you know, I do think there's a bond that people have, and hopefully that bond stays whether they're alive or not alive, you know, like we can still connect to that bond. But human bonds are just powerful, you know, and I see you, and I can tell you, you also have a lot of life force, a lot of energy, and I'm sure your kids really, really value the love that you give them. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is can we give and receive love every day if possible? You know, are there people that need us and can receive our love? Are there people we can receive love from? And those are the kind of nutrients that keeps life going, you know, like without, you can have all the money and all the power and all the success and you don't have any love. I think you're in deep poverty. Um, and so I feel like that's hopefully these little groups we do and things we do kind of helps us remember what really matters and how we can open our hearts even when it's hard, and hopefully navigate and create a world. And I was the same with you with the DNC, where I was like, I complain a lot about how the Democratic Party is too corporate and like, I don't know, this and that. And yet there was something about the messaging that really connected to me, joy and empathy and compassionate leadership. And I think some of the reason they're doing that is to juxtapose themselves to Trump. And they're realizing like, all right, Trump is so this way. If we talk about joy, like he doesn't know what to do with that. Like he can't fight us on that. So I do think there is a certain strategy that's in play right now at the Democratic Party to talk about different qualities that juxtapose them to Trump. And I also hope that it's pretty authentic for them, that moving forward in this way the party hopefully will stay on this track, that we need tough borders, we need tough this and tough that, but we don't need aggression and animosity and lack of caring. And so maybe we've turned a new chapter. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens in November too. But I'm hopeful that that at least from that convention, I also felt very inspired.
Well, you know, we don't really know the fullness of a person if we don't know them. But I really picked up from Bill Clinton and, well, really most of the speakers, the way I've been feeling about the Trumpers, and I'm not going to say Republicans anymore because I clearly some
Yeah,
exist, but
yeah.
it really was bumming my trip and it's like, wait a minute, we're all human. How can I be so, why can this person be so okay with this
Yeah.
crazy? And I was getting really sick of the crazy. And I knew it inside, but there wasn't a breath of fresh air until until the DNC, where
Yeah.
it was like, okay, wait a minute, there is other stuff besides the crazy.
Yeah.
And I think when we have hope, and I can say this firsthand, um, hope just changes everything, everything. And there's possibility. There's fill in the blank. One of my sons wasn't going to vote, and
Mm,
I got it because life for him isn't what it was for me.
yeah.
And the messaging wasn't messaging to him, and I thought, and then everything changed, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I I just I just I always felt when I was coming of age, I could do anything. I was raised with parents who believed that about me. I'm very lucky. I know I've learned from Heart's Path that not everybody not everybody has that experience with their birth family. I did. I had, you know, obviously everybody has their stuff, but I was raised by people who thought I could do anything,
Mhm.
and and I married somebody who thought that of me. And I worked in a male dominated field, but was very supported by the men in the field that thought I could do anything. So I'm one of those lucky people that I just shimmied through those cracks somehow. But I don't think I'd be here if not for that. So I know how
Wow.
important it is for people to feel free and to feel like they can do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
And then when my husband died, I have to say, and I think it's because of my meditation community, and I have a meditation partner from Inner MBA. I mean, it goes way, way
Uh-huh.
back.
Okay,
And
you're with us all over the place.
yeah, I mean, that's what started my pivot journey kind of. And my
Wow.
husband wasn't into it, but he loved it for me because he
Mhm.
saw how much I got out of it. And that was during the pandemic. So, and I don't know if you remember, the first Inner MBA it went
Yeah,
online because of the pandemic.
yeah.
And so I
We were
had a
gonna do it in
meditation.
person. We're gonna do in person before the pandemic. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And so my meditation partner for Rain is from Berkeley, and we've been together since that first Inner MBA over 3 years, and every other
Wow.
week we rain together.
Wow.
So when my husband died, I was pretty well supported. And I remember saying
That's
to my sister,
amazing.
if I don't make it, no one's gonna make it because of the support I had around me.
That's beautiful. Wow, that's really, really
These
beautiful.
communities
So,
too,
yeah. What do you think
so
is,
when I feel like I'm
yeah, one last question for you, then we're gonna let you go. So when I think like joy to me is, or hope to me is important, but it's also a future, kind of future oriented. What about hope to you makes you, is it that we can have a better world than we have now, or your child might feel hopeful, or you might feel, um, can you tell me a little bit what hope means for you?
people may not know this about me that know me sort of intermittently, but I really, the Hamlet soliloquy, "What a piece of work is man," I really do believe that.
Mhm.
And how infinite in faculty and form and movement, all that stuff. I really do believe I love our race.
Mhm.
I've come to realize how much I love America, and it's just so easy to see that, to forget.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't get to see that stuff,
Yeah,
and so I think it means and that's why I love the Olympics. It's like to see
yeah, joy and
excellence.
love, and yeah. Okay, beautiful. So I think right now what we'll do, let's take a break. I want to lead a visualization, but let's like take a break and get away from our screens for 10 or 15 minutes. And then what if we come back here at about 15 minutes after the hour, and then we'll do a visualization that I want to lead you guys in. Does that sound good? I think if we just have a little time to kind of freshen up, go outside, drink some water, whatever you want to do, and we'll be back here in 15 minutes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. see who might be back here.
Message says that host stopped the video.
Let's see what this says. I don't know. But people
I
should be
see you.
able,
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
You're there.
okay, people should be able to, if they want to be on audio, they can be on audio. If they want to be on video, they can be on video. So we'll just give a little more time for people to land. All right. So we have a little more than an hour left and would love to kind of focus a bit more on where we want our life to move forward to. And to me, there's this incredible art or balance between accepting life and ourselves just as we are, which I think is always kind of the starting place. And at the same time, kind of stepping into the possibilities that exist in ourselves. And when we have stories like I'm unworthy, we have stories like I can never do it, we have stories like I don't deserve it, those impact how life manifests for us, right? Like because we have the thought, and the thought kind of creates a reality. Once we kind of hold on to those thoughts, it's very hard for life to shift in any other direction. Because if we feel like we're unworthy or we feel like we can't do anything, then life often kind of mirrors that back to us. And so I thought we would do a kind of meditation where we begin to explore how do we kind of expand our sense of what's possible. Not from a sense of I'm incomplete now, and if this happens, I'll be complete, but more if our true expression and our true heart and our true kind of aliveness was allowed more, how would that unfold? And can we kind of expand past maybe some of these stories that we've told ourselves of being undeserving or not worthy? So does that make sense? And I'll guide the meditation or the visualization, and it'll probably maybe make some more sense. All right. So encouraging you to sit. You can lie down if you want to do, sit in whatever way is comfortable. Keep your video on, keep your video off, whatever you want to do. Find a comfortable way to sit or lie. And then I like to put my hand on my heart and one hand on my belly, but you can also just put your hand on your knees, whatever you're comfortable with. I don't know why. This is not like a Buddhist technique as far as I know. I just found myself doing it more. And take a couple deep breaths. And we're going to start by just feeling our body like we did before. Feeling our feet on the ground. Feeling the pressure of our legs and buttocks on the chair. Feeling the flow or rhythm of the breath in the belly. Noticing how the chest expands and contracts. The belly rises and falls. And sensations of the nostrils as the breath comes in and out. And seeing if you can kind of be both alert but relaxed and at ease. And then get a sense as best you can of your, whatever name you want to call it, this place inside you that's your essence or wisdom, compassion, the kind of deepest part of you. See if you can call that up or bring that into your awareness. Continuing to focus on your breath coming and going. And then inquire if I allowed this part of me to be more present in my life, what might happen? And just see what happens when you ask that question. You might hear things, you might see things, you might feel things. Get a sense of this being inside of you that's kind of your deeper, truest self. If it was more present, how would your friendships change? Just see your friendships, how you would relate to friends. If this part of you is more active. How would you show up? How would you speak? How would you listen? What would be the expression of this? And if you are in a relationship or intimate connections with lovers or children or parents, how would these more intimate relationships change? If at all, if this deeper spiritual, wise essence part was allowed more space to be. What might happen? And just notice again, you may hear things or see things or how would these relationships change, if at all? And if this wise or spiritual self or essence part of you showed up more in your work, how would that look? What changes, if anything, would happen? And if this essence or spiritual self showed up in how you related to the world, what activities were you a part of or not a part of? How would this part relate to the world? The beauties of the world, the challenges of the world. This part is not trying to get anywhere or make anything happen or manipulate or strategize. Just showing up with full love, full awareness in all these different components or areas. And just feel what that's like in your body, to be guided and led by the depth of who you are. And then notice this part in all these quadrants. See if you can imagine a life, this deeper part of you, this inner wisdom, spirit, self, whatever we want to call it, was extremely active in intimate relationships, friendships, work, the world. Just notice what that's like if that begins to be present. And can you feel that in your body now? And notice if there's any places of resistance in your body. Says you don't deserve this. If you allow this, something bad will happen, or only certain people can have certain things. Just notice what, if anything, comes up to block this. Imagine yourself walking through the world in a way that's honorable, that's alive, that's not trying to have power over somebody, but more power with. By you standing in your power, people are motivated and inspired to stand in their power. Imagine going through life connected to this source. What kind of friendships would you have from this place? What kind of relationships would you have? What kind of work would you be involved with or not involved with? How would you engage the world? And see if you can begin to feel into this possibility. This possibility of a life lived with open heart, care, and not held back by whatever the stories are that tell us we can't do something. Just feel like as if it's happening now. So imagine fully connected to your spirit, to your heart, to this wise being inside you. So can you both feel it in this moment and then also imagine it? Friends, family, work, life. And notice the impact on other people. As you carry yourself in the world from this place of openness and aliveness. How are other people relating to you? Can you slowly step into this place of, for lack of a better word, power, where you know there'll be unpleasant experiences, you know there'll be hardship, you know there'll be sadness, grief, dissatisfaction. All these all these challenging emotions will probably arise. And at the same time, you have this enormous capacity to feel, to witness, to give and receive support and love. And seeing if you can expand in that capacity in this moment. Not trying to change yourself, but just inviting yourself. How do we meet life with a certain curiosity and care and love? The willingness to learn. You can even bring to mind somebody, if you want, an example of somebody who you feel like kind of lives from that place. It could be somebody like Michelle Obama or Oprah, or it could be somebody like your aunt or a friend or a neighbor. Imagine somebody in your world that you feel like fully shows up. They show up from their deepest place. And feel the impact that has on you. The gift that is to feel connected to another person. And you fully allow yourself to step into this possibility, knowing that you and this friend or this mentor or this person you admire are the same people. The same capacity they have, you also have. There's nothing different or better about them. Fully allow as best you can yourself to step into this possibility. Where your light, your passion, your joy, your energy can be free. Sometimes it helps to imagine it as like a light or a beaming ball, and you're just going to surrender into that. It's not about forcing or changing or trying to figure something out mentally. It's just, can we allow ourselves to live in our naturalness? Who we truly, truly, truly are. Before we were told or conditioned that there was something wrong with us, or that we had to prove ourselves, or that we were inadequate. There was just this being inside us, this pure being inside us. And can we begin to wish that for ourselves? May I live with a full and open heart. May I live motivated by love instead of fear. May I be the fullness of who I am. May the light and shine inside me shine bright. Using whatever words feel good to you. May I be happy and well. May the fullness and love and vastness of my being get allowed expression. Inviting yourself, both for yourself, but also for the benefit of all these beings in the world. And to be of service to others, we need to first be of service to ourselves. To help people know themselves, we first have to know ourselves. And then seeing if you can extend this wish for well-being to the people closest in your life, your family, your partner, your dear friends. And just as I want to shine my light, just as I want to expand, just as I want to express my fullness, just as I want to embody love and care, just as I want to manifest and bring forth a rich, fulfilling, engaged life where I have the resources I need to take care of me, where I have the passion and the purpose to guide me, where I have the community that supports me. So too do I wish this for you as well, the dear people in my life. Thinking of friends, family, lovers, partners, husbands, wives, who's ever very close and dear, sending them well wishes. Not trying to even change them or help them really, just wishing them well because it feels good to do so. Then letting this expand out to the city and state where you live. May all the people in the state where I live, may they know who they truly are. May they live and be guided from a place of care and joy, freedom. May they be free. And then expanded to the country. I think we're all from the US here today. So everybody in the United States, which is going through such a challenging time and probably will increase, those challenges will probably increase in the years ahead or the months ahead. This country that's known so much beauty and care and welcoming, and also so much pain, both to the Native Americans, to the African American community, to other countries in Central and South America. Just feeling this whole country that in some ways is a beacon of democracy and freedom, and has also done some really, really horrendous acts as well. And can we just hold this country in our hearts and wish all the people, all the animals, all the plants, may all the beings in this land know who they truly, truly are. And may they live from that place. May their hearts open and shine. May they be happy and well. And expanding the sense of care through the oceans, and all the other continents on the planet, Europe, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, through all the algae and fish and whales and sharks and dolphins in the ocean, throughout the southern and northern climates. No matter the ethnicity of a person, no matter the language of the person, no matter whether they're educated or uneducated, whether they're famous or not famous, whether they're rich or poor, to see if you can expand this wish for their own beauty to shine. And all the people out there that live in shame and pain and animosity and distance, may you all be happy. May you all be free of pain and suffering. May you know the joy, the freedom, the love of your open heart. And just expanding this so that the whole earth, the whole globe just fits in your heart. Doesn't mean you like everybody. It doesn't mean you can always give everybody a hug. It just means you acknowledge the humanity that we all share. And no matter who's born into these bodies, there's pain, there's loss, sadness. There's also joy, play, tenderness. Just holding those together for this moment on this planet. When you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Thank you for participating in that with me. That was a bit of a combination of things. Curious what people experienced, if anybody wants to share. Was there parts that were hard or easy or you resonated with or didn't resonate with? We have about 30 or 40 minutes left and just want to check in on that. And there's one more thing I'd love to do if we have time.
I just want to say thank you. That was so beautiful. And I forget to remember that when we do this together, that even though there's a screen, I just feel so connected to everybody.
Yeah.
So just want to thank you.
I love that phrase, I forget to remember. Great, right. I totally relate to that. I forget to remember. And I think, one of the things which is so interesting is when we see one another, either in person or virtually, there's this remembering that happens naturally, right? Like, oh, we're together. Like we might have separate accents and separate body types and separate life situations, but there's something that, we share that's human, based on either the universe or based on the Big Bang, or I don't know where it comes from, but there's something that bonds us. And how do we live from that place, whether we're with a person or not with a person? And I think that's really the art of life, is always remembering that. And so as we make ourselves way in the world, whether there's maybe there's nobody around us, maybe there's somebody around us, but there's just this sense of feeling like there's a belonging. And we always have usually the sky or the trees. There's some nature usually around us anyways. Eckhart used to say, Tolle used to say that even if you were in a concrete room in prison all by yourself, you're connected to nature because you are nature. You're connected to yourself and you are nature. And I think that's just a great thing to remember, that we all are a part of this kind of like journey. human journey, animal journey, life journey, consciousness journey. And how do we remember that, I guess? Yeah. Suzuki Roshi has this quote that my partner and I use a lot, where he says, what's the most important thing? I don't know if you've seen this or heard this, but he asks his students, what's the most important thing? And his answer is the most important thing. So what he asks, what's the most important thing? The most important thing is remembering what's the most important thing. That's his answer. So as we make our day in the world, I always say to my partner, Cecily, sometimes, remember the most important thing. And it's to remember the most important thing. So yeah, thank you for that. Anything else you want to say? Was there any parts of visualization that either were hard or easy or?
I am a groupie for your meditations because, I just feel like you can, I listen to what you're saying, and then there's a part where I just go somewhere else, but I always come back, and I think that spaciousness just feels so cozy. And yeah,
Cool.
it's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anybody else want to share either about the meditation or just kind of what's coming up as we kind of close out this last section?
Well, I don't meditate in the daytime, but I meditate every night. And I was trying to figure out, is this a habit or is it a ritual? Between habit and ritual.
Yeah, which one?
I decided, because I've done it for so long, it's a ritual, because I do it in order to sleep. And I go to sleep.
Mhm.
I can't hear, and I always, my first meditation of the night, because I wake up in the night, is it has to be a minimum of 60 minutes. And I don't know when I fall asleep, but somewhere in between that, so I don't hear everything.
So walk us through this. So you're lying in bed and you have a headphones on?
No, no. I'm lying in bed, and it's actually on I do it through Insight Meditation. There's an
Inside
app,
Timer?
and I bought the premium version.
Right.
So I have access to a lot of meditations, including pain meditations that I've
Right.
used when
Right.
I've been in extreme pain. Um, so mine, I think, is a ritual, because I do it in order to something, deal with the pain, go to sleep.
Mhm.
But I've resisted the daytime meditations, because I'm like, well, what's the purpose of the daytime meditation?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The
So
purpose is to help us wake up.
yeah,
That's my purpose. Yeah. Not to
yeah.
go to sleep, actually. The other one. Although
And
going to sleep.
there's a morning meditation that I actually love. I forgot the name of it, but it's literally a 10-minute meditation, because the nighttime's got to be 60 minutes, but the morning's got to be quick.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Is that because you're very busy, or is that because?
no, because my brain doesn't have the patience.
Yeah.
It's like, for that would have to be, it's not part of I'm not meditating in order to do something. It's like, I mean, it's supposed to be to start my day, but I don't know what my purpose of the day is. Maybe I don't know. So
Yeah.
I can't seem to get the daytime meditation by myself.
Got it.
Anyway, but when I'm doing it with others, it's
So much easier, isn't it?
it's so much easier.
So much
Yeah.
easier. Yeah.
So that's what I got out of it.
I had thought of that. Maybe there's a group that already does that, but I had thought of what would it be like if this is my vision. There's a meditation every hour, every hour of the day, 24 hour, every hour there's a meditation. And there's different people leading or practicing or guiding it. And so at any moment, there's a meditation somewhere, and there's one Zoom link, and we just keep it going anytime you want a meditation. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Well, the Insight Meditation has one of those. It says who is meditating at the moment, because it's worldwide.
Oh, that's right. But can you meditate? You can meditate with the people. You can jump in their room.
Yeah, you can click onto the live one. I've never done that, because the live, I mean, people are all over the world, so it's a lot of different time zones, and that's why I'm saying it is available even in the
Cool.
middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah. But then we also know that if we're in the woods and we're all by ourselves, whenever we sit down, somebody else is sitting down with us. There's
Yeah.
some monk somewhere, or some person somewhere sitting down with us. And there was this video, it was a friend sent me some time back. It was an hour-long video, and it's of a girl doing homework on YouTube. And she just is doing homework. And kids will play that sometimes while they do homework.
Doing homework.
So there's somebody else doing homework with them. And
Mm.
I always found that so interesting that like, and I watched the video for just like 5 minutes because like I was like, to me, it's really boring. But I guess there's
Right.
some kids that are home by themselves, and having that video on of another kid doing homework helps them focus and helps them feel not alone and helps them kind of tend to their homework better. And yeah, super interesting.
Mm.
So, anything else?
I just a little comment or two. I loved, Faith, how you talked about spacious coziness, and it sort of came to mind that when I was doing this, is accessing sort of an expansion across my shoulders, and what would it be like bringing that expansiveness, across my shoulders into my everyday being and relationships with myself and others and with the world. And so spacious coziness, mine was like an expansive fullness, not in the sense of
Beautiful.
busy full, but generative, compassionate, and what would be possible then. So I truly enjoyed being taken there. I was and being taken there with you all, and getting in out of my mind,
Yeah.
and into that feeling of the body and the spaciousness and the expansion and the
Mhm.
yeah. So thank you.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know if you found this, but sometimes if you move the body a certain way, it kind of helps to open up certain pieces.
Mhm.
Like, you see people walking around sometimes, and like, you just don't want to talk to them because how they're
Mhm.
carrying themselves says, "Get the hell away from me," or how they're carrying themselves says something, right? And then
Mhm. Mhm.
I think one of the interesting things to play with is like, oh, if we shift our body, my Pilates teacher's always telling me this, but if we shift our body and open up certain chest and other areas, like sometimes our energy shifts as well, right? Like
Oh,
we position
absolutely.
ourselves.
I habitually hold a lot of tension in my shoulders, in my neck, and I'm aware of this sort of shrinking
Yeah.
in, right? And it's only been in the last few weeks of work where I have felt this um, opening up of that area of
Yeah,
my body, and it feels like it's representing something for me.
that's beautiful. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's my one challenge with it is just to be patient because I'll know
Yes.
that, but I know that I have 50 some years or whatever it is of the other conditioning, and just
Yes.
be patient with myself. Like, okay, well, I can notice it right now, and in the
Yes.
moment, can I have some sense of expansion in my body and my heart, and know that there's a gradual process then of that impacting.
Yeah.
But I do
It
need a
has
lot.
taken several weeks of actually thanking that part of me that was sort of acting to protect me and allowing that part, that posture, even exaggerating it. And I feel like that part of me and myself are coming out, and was doing some other work through Coaches Rising that, sort of led to this sort of,
Oh, great.
uh, this, yeah, deeper embodiment of who I really am, I guess, and,
Yeah, that's it.
uh, in the world. So, yeah.
That's it. I mean, there are people for whom, I don't know if it's always the case. I think there are people for whom they're enlightened or close to enlightened, but they just don't tend to their body very much. It's just not of interest. Like there's been spiritual teachers in India and things I've read about. But for me, it's like one of my teachers said the body's solidified mind. And so as we get to know the mind, we also get to know the body. And so as the mind opens, we can use the body as like a great learning tool. Like, oh, there's this tension here. Oh, something must have just happened. Or why is this happening? Oh, something must have triggered me. Like, it can teach us a lot if we pay attention and use it as like a learning system rather than like something we think you have to be perfect, it has to be perfect, and you have to like constantly mold it into something. But it's like, no, it's a teacher. And how do we kind of take its teachings and also invite it to be that full expression? And
Yeah.
I grew up tall and very ashamed, so I kind of walked around like this for a long time, and my chest would kind of be very caved in. And it's been really interesting to try to just be more, you know, more open. And when I grew up in Texas, a lot of people fought a lot, and there was a lot of like guy toughness. And I thought if I walked with an open chest that I would be, some guy would want to fight me because like, oh, who the hell do you think you are? Like you're like so tough. I'm like, no, I don't want to. So I kind of like took myself out of that club. And it's only many, many decades later that I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't want to walk through my life like afraid of standing tall. Like that's just kind of silly. So I'm very much with you in that learning.
Thank you for sharing that.
When you visualized yourself, could you visualize that deeper part of you showing up in different components, or was that kind of hard, or how was your experience with that?
Yes, I could see that playing out in my relationship with my husband. And I could see it playing out with how I am with myself and how I am in the world in a general sense, but always it was with greater presence and appreciation.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. We can't change the event always, but we can change how we respond to an event. And sometimes, for me anyways, when I can visualize it, it's like shooting a basketball or doing anything. If I can visualize making it, I'm more likely to make it when I try it. Like if I can
Yes.
visualize a possibility of being non-reactive or visualize a possibility of just like holding that space, like if the Mother Teresa or the Buddha or whoever we like, or Michelle Obama was in there, we can kind of get a sense of like, oh, there's a possibility of a different response or a different way of being.
And to imagine how that possibility would feel.
Yeah.
First to yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? To really imagine how it would feel. When we moved into the house we're in, it was good bones, as they say, but I would imagine welcoming friends into our renovated home for many years. And eventually that's what manifested.
Wow.
And so it was that feeling. What would it feel like
Yeah.
to welcome them in?
And then you
this
already get
space?
the experience, right? You don't have
Yes.
to wait.
Oh, and I got the joy of that experience over and over again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that was for many years how I drifted off to sleep. Many nights, not every night, but
Imagining welcoming people into your renovated home. Wow. And how many
and
years?
we didn't wait. We did welcome people before it was renovated. But yes.
And then how many years did it take to renovate it?
Oh gosh, 11 years.
11 years.
Well, we
Wow.
both worked full time. We did a lot ourselves, and
Wow.
we did the last bit in a sprint. We did, the taking off the roof and raising things up a bit in a year. That was quite dramatic, but it all.
11 years. And now is it like, it's good?
Oh, it's a beautiful place. It's I was a nomad most of my life as a child with my parents, hippie parents, and so this was the first place I'd ever been here this long. It was ever put down roots.
And where do you live?
I live in Vancouver, originally from Scotland. We immigrated to Canada and lived in the Rocky Mountains, and I've lived a few other places and
Nice.
many other places. And so, yes, I love to travel and I still do that, but it feels good to call this place home, and it's something that I didn't have growing up, and I didn't feel a lack at the time, but
Yeah. One of the things I wonder sometimes is I do feel like that possibility is there, you know, when you, I don't know if we call it manifestation or visualization or, and I always wonder, like, how do we do that collectively? Like, can we do that in an intentional way with the collective? Like if we all got together an hour a week and imagined, you know, the
mhm,
situation in Gaza and Israel, that's probably the hardest thing possible, but like, you know, we imagined a world that
mhm.
was more at ease and had less violence and hatred. Would that impact the world? Uh,
I truly believe it would.
yeah,
There's butterfly effects and ripples, as they say, and energy, and energetically. I think that's what you and a lot of others are doing with your work. It feels like to me. Um,
yeah. Although it'd be interesting to say, I mean, I do think every little bit helps. Every little thing is like a butterfly wings, you know, that like have an impact. But I've never really tried, hey, let's all get together and like visualize a certain event and see if we can like direct it to an event. Um, I do notice that there've been some studies in the past where, you know, they pray for people, and sometimes there's a group that they pray for and a group that they don't pray for, and the group that gets prayed for does better health-wise, but they didn't
mhm,
know they were prayed for, right?
mhm,
Like you could argue if
mhm,
they knew it was psychologically they were like, oh, I'm getting prayed for, but like in this one study, right about like they didn't know, and so seemingly we could do that if enough of us put our attention on an area. Um, could we
mhm.
impact? You know, could we energetically convince Putin to stop attacking Ukraine? Or anyway,
Yeah,
something
and
maybe for another day, but I'm fascinated by that.
yeah, I mean, I just what came to mind with this possibility of us all really just transporting ourselves up, and letting the world go forward, 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 and come down into a world wherever we live,
Yeah,
whatever's important to us, and imagine what is that better world? What are we welcoming into our
yeah,
home
yeah,
and our communities?
yeah.
And
Beautiful.
yeah,
That's the cutting edge, I think. I'm super excited to do that. Not that our own lives aren't important too, of course, so we need to focus on that, but
yeah, you need to.
collective is also super exciting to me, interesting.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for today,
Very welcome.
Vern.
Anybody else? Anything you want to share? Lessons from the day, insights from the day, insights from the meditation we did, anything that feels you want to express?
Well, I was wondering how we're gonna keep busy for all these hours on Zoom, but,
Pretty fast.
yeah, and breaking it up, because we did a lot of in the self-compassion, seminar, there was many times a day that we did, meditation, so,
Hmm.
um, and that felt really good, just like this daytime meditation with you felt good, but I can't seem to do it by myself.
You're gonna get there. You're gonna get there. Yet. You're gonna get there. Well, I think that, you know, one of the things I would love to do more of these because I learn so much from all of you. And um, I do think there is a power in having extended time to really focus on something. You know, it's like if we're writing a book or doing any project and every 10 seconds we get like our attention gets diverted, it's very hard to make any progress because we're just like barely tending to it. And I think, you know, sometimes when we have like a day like this that we can really focus most of the day on something, it feels to me like we go deeper into that than in just an hour or 2 hour session. So I'm excited to continue to do these and to continue to learn. And my sense is the next one, we also might bring in some guests to just share their own journey with their own path. But I really like the idea of like once a month of having a kind of a focus day But like you said, it's not all on Zoom. In some ways, it's actually better if it's not, because we can support ourselves going out in nature and going for a walk. We can support ourselves in journaling. We can support ourselves in all kinds of different activities. And the screen and the day is just an excuse to do the stuff that we want to do anyways. Right? And so like even writing a vision statement for ourselves, right? Like that's probably something we all want to do. And so having a day, we get to explore and do different things. And so we'll keep doing these, I think, in some form and fashion, and we'll keep learning, like, all right, what's the balance and how do we support the community, the collective community, because we get so many messages from other places telling us very different things. And so if we want to cultivate more of a sense of wholeness and a sense of freedom, usually it requires some level of practice. Like maybe there's some people who get it instantly, but generally there's like, it's like a lifting a weight, like you have to kind of keep at it to build that muscle. And I think we're all trying to build this muscle of presence, and also build this muscle of, navigating a life that feels aligned with our hearts and hopefully isn't too restricted by old patterns that we've taken on. And I think that's the art, is that a lot of our lives are, impacted by old patterns, and they don't really need to be, like that's, and I think you're going through that now where you're like, do I really want to stay at home all the time, or is that an old pattern? And maybe I can start to expand that old pattern and see what happens. And that's powerful. I think that's what humans have this enormous capacity to do. It's kind of miraculous, actually, that humans have this capacity to expand, and that we can learn and observe and awaken. And yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else before we close off this day together in the Zoom world and non-Zoom world? And anybody have any things they want to share? Well, Mackenzie, who's behind the scenes, you can't see her, and I will send out a feedback form. And love your thoughts and ideas, and we'll keep kind of gathering the community. Our next September event, as a few people mentioned, is with Dick Schwartz and IFS and Social Change, and I think that's up on our website, or we'll get another email reminder about it. But that's a donation-based series, should be really, really cool. Learning about parts. We have a New York event we're doing. You can get a live stream for if you don't want to be there in person, but super exciting to be with John Kabat-Zinn and a bunch of other interesting people. And then if you're in the Bay Area, we have a couple Bay Area events in October, one on health and well-being and one on AI. And we just keep doing our dance and hopefully trusting that it all is like little steps in the right direction. And I think the DNC, as I agree with a lot of you, that the DNC was also very inspirational, that to do our part. And our part is both collectively knowing ourselves, and then our part is seeing what we are called to do in the world. So if there's not anything else, I will bid you adieu and enjoy your Friday evening and whatever you have planned.
Thank you, Soren. Thank you, Faith and Catherine and Bonnie.
Thank you, Catherine, Faith, Tony.
Beautiful.
Everyone.
Wonderful way
Tony.
to spend
Yeah.
today. Thank you.
Much
Spending time.
appreciation. Thank you,
Appreciate-
Mackenzie, behind the scenes. Thank you, Emily. It looks like it's here too. All
Mwah.
right, be well.
Be well.